I have a little routine that we do on one song that's sort of like, oh, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's a pretty easy one. It's all we can do.
Okay, you're driving me nuts, it seems so.
This might be it right here.
No, that's okay.
I didn't want to do that. I know, it won't mute now. I did the wrong thing here. Come on. Okay. Quit it. Start over. I just turned it off now. Quit doing it. Okay, start over. Yeah, I know. It was just responding slowly. Sorry.
Using that.
Now it won't reconnect one.
John Sabala, you are not marked if you're going to testify or not testify.
Oh, I did work. I testify.
You're going to testify? Okay, so we have to swear you in too. Do you have that, Monica? Okay. So, we're good to go. Good afternoon. It is Friday, July 17th. All three commissioners are here in the Board of County Commissioners meeting room. Monica Reeves is with us. She's doing the deputy clerk duties. Zach Wesley from our prosecuting attorney's office is here at the table. And we are here for a public hearing to consider a request by Karcher Farm LLC and SS Karcher LLC for a comprehensive plan map amendment and conditional rezone, and that's case numbers OR 2018-0004 and CR 2018-0002. And we have several people here, and we will get you sworn in. And how we've done this in the past is the people that are here in the room is where we begin with testimony. And then at this time, I'm going to recognize who has WebEx in and get the information. If you wish to speak and all of that, we will swear you in at the same time. Okay, let's see. I know Jen Almeida will. William Morrow. He's muted. You're muted, sir. You're muted. Shake your head. Do you want to speak? You want to testify?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
there. Yay, you got it.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And let's see. Patricia Nielsen, we're gonna swear you in because you might have something to add. Tom Blaisdell, you are muted, sir.
Yeah, yes. Are you there? Can you hear me?
I can. Are you in favor or against?
I am against. I would like to testify, please.
Okay, I didn't ask Mr. Morrow if he was in favor or against.
He represents the applicant or the party opponent.
Oh, so he will be against? Okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Okay, thank you. Okay. Andy, is it Homister?
He's probably muted.
Okay, he doesn't have any sound. Let's go to a phone number. One user is a 208-356 are the first numbers. Do you identify yourself, please?
Yes, this is Craig Taylor. I do not plan on testifying, but I am here in support of the request.
Okay, but no testimony. So we won't swear you in. Okay. TJ Willard. He just muted himself. Oh, there. Are you going to speak, TJ? Okay, we'll not swear TJ in. Tricia Cochran?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wait. Tricia Cochran?
Each time I unmute her, she mutes herself, so maybe she's just going
Okay.
to approve. I don't know.
Okay, I heard her say, Trish, oh, there we go. Trish, do you wish to speak? Tricia Cochran.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Yes, and are you for or against?
I'm for.
Okay. Okay. So Monica, did I cover them all that you need to?
Andy Halmester, like trying to get.
Oh, he's trying to get on. Andy Homister? You don't have your microphone on, sir. Andy?
You might just say if he's having trouble, sometimes if they get out and try back, it's
Okay.
the second time for some strange reason.
If you're having trouble, Andy, if you go out of the WebEx and then come back on, it straightens it around. And if you wish to speak, be sure and get my attention. There's a little thing, you can raise your hand, or you can just go, excuse me. Okay. Okay, I think we got him.
Okay.
Okay.
Todd Lakey,
We're going to swear you in if you're going to speak.
Todd Lakey, John Sabala, David Paul Freeman, Carly Weaver, Ryan Rollins, Dave Tuthill,
Jennifer Almeida, Tricia Nilsson, Tom Blaisdell, Tricia Cochran, William Morrow.
We'll put TJ Willard in there for good measure.
Okay.
I believe that's it. Do you swear or from the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to remind folks that if you are on the WebEx or the telephone, please mute yourselves until it's time for you to speak. That will help us cut down the clutter here.
Yes. And this is a public hearing, and we do have time constraints. So if you are signed up to speak, the applicant has 7 minutes, and everybody, if you're for or against, you have 3 minutes on this hearing. So, and then after we have all the discussion and after anybody that's opposed or something like that, the applicant does get a chance to come back and have any rebuttals that they would wish. Okay? So I think, Jennifer, are you there?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here. And all of you, thank you. This is kind of an unusual thing, but some of us look alike. Okay. You're on, Jen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to note for the record that I did notice a numbering error on the exhibits in your packet. Essentially, there were 2 exhibits marked 78. So rather than renumbering all of them, I renumbered the 2 78s to 78A and 78B.
Okay.
For the record, 78A will be the letter from John Kernkamp dated July 16th, and 78B will be the draft development agreement.
Oh,
okay. I did send over all of the exhibits I received after the staff report was printed. The board should have copies of all of them. They will be exhibits 79 through 99.
you got those, Commissioner Dale?
Does everyone have all of those?
Do you have all of those, Commissioner Debbie?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
There's 99 total, Jen.
Correct.
Okay.
The notice that went out to property owners indicated that they could request letters be read out loud by a staff member for the record. So there are some exhibits in which I did receive that request. So I will have to read those for the record.
Okay.
I'll begin doing that. You're going to hear me read for a little while. Starting with Exhibit 76 is a letter from Shane Weston.
Just one moment. Jen, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Madam Chair, before Jen Almeida gets into the letter reading, I just wanted to make sure that we went over the procedure and where we're at in the hearing procedure today. So if I can go over for that with the board briefly.
Thank you, Zach.
So, Madam Chair, before you have an application for comprehensive plan map amendments, which should change the designation of 44, almost 45 acres of commercial to residential, and then 45, almost 46 acres from agricultural to residential. And then also an application for a conditional rezone with a development agreement that accompanies that request for the comprehensive plan map change. The proceeding began, the application was originally heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission on November 15th of 2018. On that same day, the commission found the comprehensive plan map amendment did not meet the standards for review found in the Canyon County zoning ordinance, and they also issued a denial on the conditional rezone application. The Planning and Zoning Commission's decision is in your file as Exhibit 44 in the record, and their minutes, the testimony that was offered that day on November 15th, 2018, is part of the record as Exhibit 45. Because the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation on these, it's not final decision maker. The board is the next governing body that the application went to. A hearing was held on January 10th of 2019 on both the comprehensive plan map amendment and on the conditional rezone request. At that time, there was three sitting commissioners were Commissioner Dale, Commissioner White, and Commissioner Rule for District 1. The January 10th, 2019 proceeding is part of the record. There was a recording of that hearing, and it is part of the evidence that's before you today. On that day, on January 10th of 2019, there was a motion made by Commissioner Rule and then seconded by Commissioner Dale to approve the comprehensive plan map amendment. That comprehensive plan map amendment passed unanimously that day. Commissioner Rule then made a motion to approve the conditional rezone with the development agreement subject to certain conditions that were made part of the record that day. That motion was again seconded and unanimously approved that day. That development agreement is that was voted on that day as part of the record. That's that last exhibit that Jennifer Almeida entered as number 99, or actually I think it was 78B. 78B. Let me go back and say 78B was what Jennifer said. That was the exhibit with the development agreement. So that was the development agreement approved by the board on January 10th, 2019. So because the board on January 10th of 2019 made a decision that was contrary to the planning and zoning's recommendation, a second hearing is required pursuant to Idaho Code 676509B. And I'm going to read that portion of that statute to you. The governing board, as provided by local ordinance prior to adoption, amendment, or repeal of the plan, may conduct at least one public hearing in addition to the public hearings conducted by the commission. That means the Planning and Zoning Commission, using the same notice and hearing procedures as the commission. The governing board shall not hold a public hearing, give notice of the proposed hearing, nor take any action upon the plan, amendment, or repeal until recommendations have been received from the commission. Following consideration by the governing board, if the governing board makes a material change in the recommendation or alternative options contained in the recommendation by the commission concerning the adoption, amendment, or repeal of a plan, further notice and hearing shall be provided before the governing board adopts, amends, or repeals the plan. So because the governing board, that's this board, made a material change in the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, that's why we're having the second hearing. We have provided further notice according to the ordinance. The Idaho Press Tribune notice was made, the property was posted, and then radius notice was made to the neighboring property owners. That's the hearing that we're here for today. The board's made a decision on January 10th to approve the conditional rezone and the comprehensive plan map amendment. The conditional rezone subject to that development agreement that's exists at DAB. Now we're here to hold a further hearing before the governing board, this board adopts, amends, or repeals the plan of those disputes. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jennifer Almeida.
Okay. Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin where I left off with reading some of the exhibits that were requested to be read on the record. Beginning with Exhibit 76, letter from Shade Weston dated July 8th of 2020. This letter is to express my continuing opposition to the proposed comprehensive plan change and rezoning of the 129.6 acres on the southeast corner of Karcher and Farmway Roads. Unfortunately, it took going to district court to reverse the county commissioner's decision to approve what both the neighborhood and planning and zoning considered premature development proposal. This agricultural designated area where the development is proposed continues to be well suited for agricultural production. Crops planted here have produced high yields for several years. I know I have lived here for 35 years. The development lies outside of Caldwell's area of city impact. There are several suitable locations for subdivisions within the designated areas of impact. A list should be composed of those development sites. Please consider why we created these impact areas. With adequate services, the potential developments can be served by city services, which makes for good planning and serves the needs of the community without undue taxpayer expense. Choosing to go outside this boundary allows the developer to do things less expensively because the standards are lessened. This is very much the case here because the commissioners failed to observe the plan. They failed to understand what neighbors are demanding. They failed to exact conditions to restrict factors such as fugitive dust, connecting pathways, curb gutter, sidewalks, covered school bus stops, adequate ingress-egress, additional turn lanes at the Karcher interchange, groundwater concerns, including compensation for the deepening of wells to existing residences should the aquifer recede over time, and landscaped entries. In suitable areas of impact, these factors are all taken into consideration. I have concerns over Commissioner Dale participating in the new consideration. He led the effort which resulted in the development being approved and in which a judge has concluded was improperly conducted, resulting in a vacating of the approval. Citizens have already voted for a new representative to replace him, and I feel the meeting should be postponed until the new official is sworn in. Then we have Exhibit 78A, which is a letter from John Kernkamp. Last year, you approved a plan to place a large number of homes, septic tanks, and wells on 90 acres at the southwest corner of Karcher and Farmway Roads, with an additional 36 acres of commercial property and unspecified associated underground water and septic systems to support the commercial development. You did this in what appeared to be a capricious, uncaring manner, seeming to ignore the advice of Planning and Zoning Commission, the opposition from the city of Caldwell, the anticipated impact on traffic in the area, and the potential impact on already overcrowded schools. You also ignored the very serious concerns of nearby residents about the underground water table and the advancing plume of nitrate pollution in the area, relying instead on the opinions of persons who said there would be no problems, but had no facts to back up their statements. When it became apparent that you were going to approve the project in spite of all the concerns, a list was submitted of possible conditions to be applied to the project, conditions which would protect the county as well as nearby and future residents against potential costly problems with water and other issues. Finally, when it came to time for you to publish your official findings as to how you arrived at your various decisions, you dramatically failed to the requirements of Idaho Code, in which in section 676535(2) explicitly states the approval or denial of any application required or authorized pursuant to this chapter shall be in writing and accompanied by a recent statement that explains the criteria and standards considered relevant, states the relevant contested facts relied upon, and explains the rationale for the decision. Instead, your finding of fact report released on June 17th of 2019, a typical statement addressing the pertinent questions concerning the development, went like this. In the proposed comprehensive plan map amendment compatible with the surrounding plan uses. Conclusion was proposed comprehensive plan map amendment is compatible with surrounding plan uses. The finding is comprehensive plan amendment to residential is compatible with the residential uses that are located to the east side of the subject properties. This is about as far as one could get from the code requirements. And what is the meaning of surrounding? With the release of the woefully inadequate findings of fact, a group of nearby property owners decided that they had enough and per Idaho code requirements filed a request for reconsideration with your office on June 28th. In the last week of the 60-day time period allowed for you to respond, you issued a letter to the lawyer for the group saying that because the petitioners were not identified individually by name, you would not honor the request. With that, the group filed a lawsuit with the 3rd District Court in Caldwell seeking judicial review. In June of 2020, The judge issued his decision in the manner in which he vacated all of the decisions you had made concerning the development and remanded the issue back to you. In his memorandum, he specifically instructs the commissioners to grant a plenary hearing to take up the manner of petitioner's request for consideration. It has to be hoped that given the chance to start over with this process, you will now take advantage of the opportunity to act as good stewards of the county and good defenders of the rights and opinions of its residents, most of whom are strongly opposed to the arbitrary placement of new large development in the remaining rural areas of the county. Exhibit 82 was also requested to be read, which is a lengthy letter from Andy, and now I'm going to butcher your name, and I'm sorry, Andy Helmeiser. So Exhibit 82, dated July 10th of 2020. Once again, I'm writing you to express my adamant opposition to the proposed comprehensive plan change and rezoning of the 129.6 acres on the southeast corner of Karcher and Farmway Roads. I don't have to remind you that the Planning and Zoning Commission has overwhelmingly denied the proposed development based on recommendations by the Canyon County Development Department. The Planning and Zoning Commission denied both requests and concluded that the project will negatively impact the surrounding area. The project is not compatible with surrounding land uses. Compass TAZ forecasts do not support the need for the project. The proposed land use is not more appropriate than the existing land use. The project is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. Planning and Zoning Commission cited numerous land use goals, policies, economic development policies, population goals, etc., each of the comprehensive plan, which were violated as the rationale for their conclusions. Chapter 7 of the Canyon County Code was written into law for the specific purpose of maintaining an environment conducive to the welfare of the citizens of the county. Some of the more pertinent goals and policies of the comprehensive plan that were ignored follow: population goal number 1, to consider population growth trends when making land use decisions. Economic development policy number 7, Canyon County should identify areas of the county suitable for commercial, industrial, and residential development. New development should be located in close proximity to existing infrastructure and in areas where agricultural uses are not diminished. Land use residential policy number 1, encourage high density development in areas of city impact. Land use residential policy number 2, encourage residential development in areas where agricultural uses are not viable. Land use commercial and industrial policy number 1, encourage commercial and industrial development where there is adequate access to the following services, if available: sufficient water, a system to discharge used water, power, and transportation. Natural resources agricultural land goal number 1, to support the agricultural industry and preservation of agricultural land. Public services, facilities, utilities policy number 4, to encourage activities to promote the protection of groundwater and surface water. Section 7603 of the code states the commission shall review the particular facts and circumstances of each proposed comprehensive plan map amendment and make a recommendation regarding the same to the board. The commission and the board shall determine whether a proposed amendment meets the requirements of the Local Land Use Planning Act, Idaho Code Title 67, Chapter 65, and is consistent with the comprehensive plan's purposes, goals, and policies. Both the CCDC and the Planning and Zoning Commission emphatically state that the proposed development does not meet the requirements of the Local Land Use Planning Act and is not consistent with the comprehensive plan purposes, goals, and policies. The Canyon County Commissioners, in their previous decision, chose to ignore all of the facts in violation of Section 7603. On June 5th, 2020, the 3rd Judicial District in a memorandum decision on case CV 14-19-09039 ruled that the Canyon County Commissioner's decision in ignoring a timely request for reconsideration is prejudicial. The court also ruled that it was an error to limit the second hearing after amendments were added just to the impact of the amendments. The court indicated that the procedural errors existed but were not considered when it further stated several additional issues were briefed by the petitioner but are not discussed here, and the court has not dealt further with specific complaints. In the conclusion, Judge McKee stated the actions of the respondent county commissioners in approving a change to the county comprehensive plan and ordering to rezone the subject properties are vacated, and the case is remanded with directions to grant a planning hearing. In last testimony before the county commissioners, I said, I don't know where due process fits in the politics of Caney County when the entire planning and zoning process is circumvented by the commissioners entrusted with enforcing the codes of the county. Senior Judge D. Duff McKee agrees with me. The city of Caldwell was vehemently opposed to the project, as did Idaho Department of Transportation and Canyon County Highway District. It is now time for the commissioners to get on board with the citizens that elected them and listen to the county employees who tasked with managing the comprehensive plan and development within the county. There's no point in having the Planning and Zoning Commission if the unanimous recommendations are blatantly ignored by the commission in favor of real estate developers from outside the county. Judge McKee seems to agree with this point when he said in his ruling, during consideration and any further proceedings that might result, the county commissioners need to reconcile their final determinations with the findings of the Planning and Zoning Commission, harmonizing minor differences and explaining the underlying basis for any major departures. A development of this intensity with 39 acres of undefined commercial property and 90 acres of residential in an area without services is inappropriate in a rural area and needs to be located within the city limits or area of city influence. The degradation of quality of the water and the local aquifer by an additional 80 to 100 septic systems leaching into the ground is environmentally unsound and unwanted decision. An additional 80 to 100 domestic wells and commercial wells will put an undue strain on the water supply and that in the existing residents depend on for their basic sustenance. Idaho Department of Transportation and Canyon Highway District will consider the development problematic from a traffic intensity standpoint and in an area that is already plagued with heavy traffic, accidents, and fatalities. There's absolutely no need for the foreseeable future for additional commercial development in this area. There are no conceivable commercial ventures that do not already exist within 5 miles of this location. Every imaginable retail outlet from Costco to Dick's Sporting Goods to Home Depot exists at the Route 55, Karcher Road, and I-84 interchange. There are numerous lots available for sale along Karcher, already zoned for commercial and have the city services available. 4 major grocery stores exist in Caldwell within 3 miles of the site. Homes are being built in several large subdivisions and several more are under development within a 5-mile radius. And the zoning has been changed to residential on 2 or more properties in the same area within the past year. Community Planning Association of Southwest Idaho says the proposal exceeds the growth forecasted for this area, and transportation and infrastructure may not be able to support the new transportation demands. There's absolutely no rational need for this development except to generate wealth for the property owners and real estate developers. Demand you reconsider your previous decision on this matter and listen to the concerns of the people you are committed to represent and not to the interests of commercial real estate developers from outside the county. We elected you to act in the best interest of the community, not the owners of Karcher Farm LLC or SS Karcher LLC, neither of whom are residents in Canyon County. Exhibit 83 is a letter from Dr. Arlene and Dr. Michael Robinson. Dated July 12th of 2020. Dear Commissioners, how sad the citizens, homeowners are to see this proposed project come up again. Let me get clear, we do not oppose progress. However, we believe the project to be very bad for our community for many reasons. These are some of the reasons our family has observed. In a nutshell, too many properties and businesses which put a strain on the wells and water table, septics for the immediate area, put enormous strain on traffic and roads. If the well and septic situation doesn't work out, we fear that you will attempt to annex us into the city of Caldwell, which we strongly oppose because you will force us to pay for and accept city services at our expense, services that we do not want. Our property taxes will soar through the roof, which will make our homes hard or impossible to sell, and much harder to afford to live in. Surely there is a comparable land for this project where somewhere within the city limits of Caldwell, so they will not hurt the rural community that we chose to live in. Why should their greediness of wanting what I assume is slightly cheaper land hurt the lives of people already settled into the community? This whole thing is starting to remind me of the corruptness of many issues that keep changing in our society and government. Just keep bugging them over and over and we will get our way. Well, we've already successfully said no to annexing and we've already successfully said no to this project. Stop the nagging, go somewhere else. Signed, Arlene and Michael Robinson. And lastly, Exhibit 89, which is the letter from Vicky Slomowski. This letter is dated July 14th of 2020. Dear Commissioners, my family and I are strongly against the proposed development and changes related to the above-referenced land. I ask that you please give appropriate consideration to current residents and to the natural resources that would be negatively affected by this development. We purchased our home in the Moonstruck area 2 years ago. We worked hard all of our lives, many decades, and we were willing to pay a higher price to live in this peaceful rural setting. Unfortunately, the short time we have lived here, we have seen an explosion of development in the areas around Lake Lowell. We're not opposed to progress, but we believe progress should be made in a reasonable and responsible fashion. We have seen the results of unbridled development in Caney County. In our area alone, 2-lane farm roads meant to carry hundreds of vehicles have now become thoroughfares for thousands of vehicles daily. 2-lane highways built to carry thousands now carry tens of thousands. No one can deny that our roads and highways have become something they were not designed for. That is particularly true in the Lake Lowell area. Additionally, we are concerned about our natural resources. I don't know how utility systems work here, but I do know there is not an unlimited supply of water. I believe we have the right to expect that barring catastrophic events, our wells will continue to provide an adequate supply of water for our homes and families. We should not be forced to use city water and sewer services simply because of poor planning. Please also consider that once decimated, the beauty of the surrounding Lake Lowell area will never return. I believe we should be protecting this area, not destroying it in the name of the almighty dollar. I respectfully request my statement be read during the public hearing on July 17th, 2020. Thank you for your consideration. And I believe that is all of the exhibits that were requested to be read for the record. And I would also like to state that all of the board members do have copies of the letters we received from the public. I'll briefly now go into my summary PowerPoint for this project. The acreage of the site is 129.79 acres. Current zone is agriculture. Future land use is commercial and agriculture. It is not within an area of city impact, not within a flood zone, and the applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment and conditional rezone. As shown on the screen, the properties are designated as commercial and agriculture on the Caney County future land use map. That's Exhibit 13 in your packet. As I stated, the property is not located within an area of city impact. However, it is adjacent to Caldwell's area of city impact. And that would be on the eastern boundary of the subject property. There are 26 platted subdivisions within 1 mile. Average lot size within 1 mile of the platted subdivisions is 0.82 acres. The most recent residential plat recordation was in 2009, which is Jim Carey's North Star subdivision. Property is adjacent to agricultural and commercial zoning districts as shown on Exhibit 8. Our single-family residential zoning is located south of Orchard Avenue, and that was for a smaller property just south of that road. As shown on the screen, we have the Compass TAZ household data, which do not show a significant increase in households through the year of 2040. And that's Exhibit 17 and 17A in your packet. As stated in some of the exhibits you received, Compass did indicate in Exhibit 25 that they did not, or they stated that the proposal does exceed the growth forecast for this particular area. Same with the job data that was also referenced in Exhibit 25. Compass does not anticipate an increase of jobs in this area through the year 2040. The applicant has proposed using individual septic systems and wells for each of the proposed residential lots, as well as for the commercial developments. City services are not available to the subject properties. City of Caldwell has indicated that city sewer is approximately 3 miles from the site, and the nearest water line is approximately 2 miles northeast and 1.5 miles to the southeast. The northwest portion of the property is located within a nitrate priority area, as shown on Exhibit 15. The remainder of the subject properties are not located within the nitrate priority area. The applicant will be required to adhere to Southwest District health requirements, including but not limited to a nutrient pathogen study at the time of platting for that portion of the development. Canyon Highway District has stated that the size and scope of the project is anticipated to have impacts to the existing and future traffic network. The applicant has completed a traffic study, which is Exhibit 39. And as of today's date, I did not receive confirmation from the Highway District or ITD that study had been formally approved. The property is adjacent to the impact area for the City of Caldwell. The City of Caldwell stated objection to the request in Exhibit 21, noting the availability of commercial platted properties in the area that are accessible to city sewer and water. Department of Environmental Quality recommends the project be served by existing approved wastewater collection systems or a centralized community wastewater system whenever possible. And also the same would apply for drinking water systems or city systems whenever possible. Staff has reviewed this request and found that it does not meet the standards of review for the comprehensive plan map amendment or the conditional rezone. And as such, staff is recommending denial of the request. There are proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law and order for the board's consideration found in Exhibit 1 and 1A of the staff report. That concludes my summary, and I will stand for questions.
Questions for Jennifer?
Madam Chair, I have a question, Jennifer, relating to the data you provided, which I believe is from the staff report that was generated in 2018. So is that still a true statement that there's not been any platted subdivisions since 2009 in that area?
Commissioner Van Beek, I had the data rerun, and there was no additional subdivisions within that radius platted since that time.
Okay, thank you. And then the data, the Compass report indicating that this development exceeds their projected forecast, is that a current report? What's the date on that? I have it here, but on 25, but I don't see a date.
Commissioner Van Beek, that was submitted for the prior hearing. All affected agencies, including Compass, were re-notified of this particular request and did not update their comments.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And
You're
then
welcome.
your agency or your comment review here on the screen, do we have a hard copy of that or is that just digital?
Of my PowerPoint presentation?
Correct.
I do not have it in hard copy form. There's no additional information that's not already contained within the staff report. However, if you do choose,
summarized?
Yes, it's
like
summarized from the report.
So where do I find the summary that's on the screen?
I did not mark it as an exhibit. If you do want to mark it as an exhibit, we can mark it as a separate exhibit. It would be Exhibit 100.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Jennifer at this time?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Okay, we will start with the applicant, Todd Lakey. Okay. Name and address, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we start, name Todd Lakey, Fort Law, address 12905 in East Court, Idaho. And if you can, Jennifer's got my slides, if she can pull that up. And Commissioners, I was planning on the regular 10 minutes, so I'm going to be skipping slides.
We are here.
Madam Chair, are you able to see those exhibits on your end?
It's conditional rezone is up there. It needs to go higher.
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll be asking Jennifer to kind of do slides as we go along. Commissioners, we are back here because of legal procedural issue. The previous hearing is determined by the district court, but not because of the merits. The decision to approve this application was and is the right decision based on the character of the area and the facts. I'd like to remind you that you remember, as you noted in the previous hearings, Mr. Sabala and Mr. Paltroman went the extra mile as far as studies, factual analysis to answer the questions that were raised in this case, and also made concessions regarding the proposal. Commissioners, these are the studies that were provided to this commission, sitting here on my right. There's a hydrological analysis that shows that there will be no significant impact on the aquifer, the neighbors, or the lake. There's a traffic impact study that was provided, but Commissioners, this is really a plating issue as noted by both ITD and Canyon 4. But we can, according to the study, and will meet the Iowa District and the ITD standards as part of that final process. There were numerous meetings with Southwest District Health, which included county staff at the most recent one. We provided you with a copy of a level 2 NP study for the Moonstruck Subdivision, which is immediately adjacent to us. Also indicated that individual well and septic were appropriate for this project. Southwest District Health looked at that study and said it also applies to our property and that individual well and septic are appropriate. The result of this extra effort and concessions that have been made are a high quality, larger lot estate project that will improve or maintain the existing residential character of the area and provide needed commercial zoning closer to Highway 5 to support economic development and diversify the tax base. Since our previous approval, Valleywide Cooperative purchased 9 acres on the northeast corner. They're an agronomy-based business headquartered in Canyon County, and they do business in 5 states. They're here in support. Next slide. Commissioners are looking at the comprehensive plan. Most of the property, Jennifer, you need to scroll up a little bit, is designated commercial. 83 acres of the site of the 129 are designated commercial. Based on the neighbors' comments and input from the county, we agreed to reduce that commercial request and pull it closer to Highway 55. The 83 acres that are designated resulted in only a request for 37 acres closer to Highway 55 commercial. 46 acres that are designated agriculture for the proposed low density residential are surrounded by commercial and by residential designations in the comp plan. So essentially, Commissioners, we're looking at an infill from a comprehensive plan standpoint. That's more appropriate than the surrounded and enclave agricultural designation and the larger commercial area that we're using. Next slide. Commissioners, the comprehensive plan states that if you were to consider growth trends and patterns, not recent trends, but trends or patterns, it's very clear that there is a trend or a pattern in this immediate area, particularly south of Highway 55, for residential and commercial development. Residential development in the comprehensive plan is encouraged in or near the impact areas or within areas that demonstrate a development pattern of residential uses. We meet both of those. We are near the impact area and then we're immediately adjacent to it. And there's also a clear pattern of residential development in the area. Next slide. One comment there as well, there's not a requirement other than for high density development to be located in the impact area or the city. This is not high density development, it's low density. This is the assessor's parcel map. It shows the character of the area the city is moving toward us. The subdivisions that are closest to us are county subdivisions with lots ranging from 0.3 to 1 acre in size. The only adjacent agricultural production operation is across Highway 55 to the north. That's that yellow. City services are miles away, and if we wait for the city, then commissioners, we're going to have city development, which out there is 0.14 acres in size. Not everyone wants city lots, and I think that's reflected in the larger rural estate pattern that's developed in this area for county subdivisions. Next slide. Go next slide. Jennifer, skip one to the one that says the area. Commissioners, let's look at the numbers. There are 26 county subdivisions within 1 mile. There are 640 residential lots within that 1 mile. And the average lot size is 0.82 acres. We are proposing a lower density that's very compatible with that character. Next slide. This is our concept plan, commissioners. That is really a plating issue. This is a concept plan, but a lot of the issues raised are plating issues. Plating may result in some modifications to this, but the large majority, as was stated, is not in a nitrate priority area. We've had many meetings with Southwest District Health. Southwest District Health, they're the experts in regards to geology, hydrology, and recent and historic development in the area. They determined that our project is appropriate for individual well assessment. Next slide. Looking at some of the homes in the area, this is the Moonstruck Subdivision immediately adjacent to us, 121 lots, 0.99 acre average lot size. Next slide. Jennifer, you can skip to the slide that says commercial. Our intent is to have similar homes with this high-end quality based on CCNR. Commissioners, the comprehensive plan states that the county should create commercial districts to attract development. That recognizes the need to have commercially zoned property that's ready. Businesses look for that. They don't want to risk the time or risk of the zoning process. They'll go elsewhere if they can't find that property that is zoned commercial. I used last time that example of Legacy Feed and Fuel. That's that picture to the north. As you know, that's south of Nampa, the county zoned commercial. That's why they chose that site. It's been successful, and they have their own water system and their own wastewater system pursuant to Southwest District Health. Valleywide Cooperative, the Farmers Cooperative, they're looking at a concept like that below that, which is what they call a lifestyle store. It's a combination, I would say, of Legacy Feed and Fuel and a smaller, nicer D&D supply type of store. It has fencing supplies, hardware, Western and work apparel, and small cafe. Next slide. This is a picture of some of the commercial in the area that exists. We have the old convenience store to the west, an old RV park to the west, and then storage units to the west and to the east. And that's also a picture of the intersection. Commissioners, we fit with the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance. We'd ask for the same approval that we granted previously.
Questions? Yes.
Yes, thank you. And I have several questions for Mr. Lakey, so I appreciate that. Mr. Lakey, has there been any attempt to account for or mitigate the traffic issues that were identified by having farming operations with heavy equipment? That was one of the things that was raised in the hearing. I did sit in one of these, so I'm not sure why that was in there, but can you address that question? And I have several after that, please.
Let's see, Jennifer, if you could go to the assessor's parcel map. I think it's page 4. Commissioner, first I would say that the traffic study was performed. The traffic study did specific traffic counts during the AM and PM peak hour times. Those traffic counts were well within line of standards for both the highway district and we will meet whatever requirements they have.
So, and I specifically, did it address the movement and the staging of heavy equipment for operations? And I understand what you're saying. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is you use the word an enclave piece of property, and on the south, so I'm going to regress and ask another question. Is there a reason that you didn't request an updated staff report for this? Because as I read through there, some of the things in there appeared to be outdated because of the amount of growth and the, in the city of Nampa, what's occurring in that area. So I was curious why a staff report wasn't generated that was more current, given the amount of development that's taken place in that South Nampa area in the last 2 years.
So I'll try to address both your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, as far as the ag traffic, any ag trips were counted in that.
Okay.
But I would note the north end of the property is bordered by Highway 55.
Mr. Lakey, will you use this, please?
Thank you. Sure.
They're working?
Sure, I'd like to use it.
Well,
Put it in your face.
There it goes.
There it goes.
okay, sometimes you gotta hold them just right.
It doesn't show up very well on the screen, but moving north, there's the blue X of the subject property. The yellow line is Highway 55. As you'll note, there are no agricultural operations, significant agricultural operations surrounding us. But north of 55,
Yes.
there's agricultural operations. But that is Farmway Road. That tees down into Orchard right there north of the lake. The significant agricultural traffic on Farmway is primarily related to our own agricultural operations. There's not really any reason for agricultural operations north of 55 to come down and go across or adjacent to our property. Farmway to that direction doesn't really go where there's significant agricultural activity.
And Farmway, Mr. Lakey, so you've got Carter Road there, the access property, is it?
Farmway is that road that's immediately connected to our east.
Okay. There's a stoplight there by.
There's a brand new stoplight there, yes, right. Oh, that's better. Right here now, right there.
Okay.
And then it goes down and tees into Orchard right there.
Okay.
And as you can see, there's no other agricultural operations that access in that location.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, if you get to the other question.
The other question, as far as updating, I think you may have been talking about the traffic study itself. Am I incorrect there?
Well, I was just looking at, this has been an ongoing project. That's a pretty big project. And so, Jen, maybe you can help me, but it appears that the staff report that the board was provided to look at this again, after being remanded from this report, is still the same staff report from 2018. So given that there has been additional development in that area, I was just curious.
Commissioner, the additional development is further to the west. For example, Mr. Cotton's project, there that's west of Nampa. But as far as kind of this immediate vicinity, nothing since the last staff report that's significant.
Okay, thank you. And then on Valley-wide, that commercial building that you showed, is that the prototype of what they would build there, or is it something else they have in mind? Because Valley-wide is a fuel distributor also, correct? So help me understand everything that encompasses, because having a store like that, that's like Legacy Feed, is different than a fueling station for trucks and other commercial things. So this contains both C1 and C2 commercial designations in the property, correct?
Correct.
So help me understand what that looks like, if it's that or if it's something else, storage for volatile, flammable things.
Sure. Madam Chairman and Commissioner Van Dijk, Jennifer, if you could go a little further back, and we do have some Valley-wide representatives here, Commissioner. The rendering there is an example of what they're, to my knowledge, specific for the site. But their plan is not to store agricultural products and fertilizer and things like that on the site. It's for this lifestyle store. And you can kind of get this, a rough scale of it. But it is, as you said, different than that other aspect of their operations. They are a farm cooperative, but they have various aspects of their business. And whatever they do on this site would have to comply with zoning ordinance and conditions of approval and development agreement as was previously approved, or that may be approved, hopefully, in this case. So it's as I said, it's kind of a combination of a smaller, nicer D&D and a legacy fuel.
Okay. And you indicated that there's 37 acres of C one or two designations contained within it that is on the north side next to 55. Is that correct? Verified.
Most of that next to 55 is C2. There's a smaller portion of C1 right off Farmway that's about 2 acres.
Okay. So Jen, is the land use matrix is included in the staff report for the board's consideration?
It is, Commissioner.
Yes. Commissioner Van Beek, there is a matrix in there. If you give me just one moment, I can get the number for you.
That's fine. I have another question.
Okay.
Approximately how far away are the city services? And I guess my question really goes down to the amount of discharge on a commercial property with an individual septic. So do you have those numbers? And where you're in proximity, then I am assuming that your hydrogeological report is groundwater flow and gradient and things like that.
Madam Chairman and Commissioner Van Beek, we're 1.5 to 2 miles from city water, about 3 miles from city service, or sewer services. The commercial use, as was conditioned previously, and we're proposing the same condition, is that they have Southwest District Health approval for their wastewater system before operations commence, before anything begins on a commercial aspect of the property. So that requires that in advance. The types vary per type of use. So there are commercial uses that have a very low level of use, and there are those that have a higher level.
And what I thought I heard you say on the legacy feed and fuel is that they have their own self-contained septic and community, something that contains that would discharge or at least diminish the aquifer, if that's what the concerns are, and that is what the concerns are.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, yes, they have their systems that were approved by Southwest District Health. They are not on city services. Legacy fuel. This would be the same situation. They'd have to meet the requirements of Southwest District Health. Our hydrological study did show that we have a very strong and very stable aquifer out there. There will not be any negative impact on that aquifer as a result of this project, any significant negative impact. And again, the commercial use would have to meet those requirements. Southwest District Health. So, Commissioner, the study shows the facts, the analysis of well logs and soil types and geology and hydrology. All of that factual analysis gets past the emotional, non-factual based assertion that the aquifer will be impacted. It shows that there will not be a negative impact. And we do have Mr. Tuthill today that will testify on it.
Okay, and then is that information available? I remember from the last hearing in Assessor, there is a hydrogeologist that was representing opposition to that. Is that information available? Should they want to look at it?
Madam Chairman and Commissioner Van Beek, that report is submitted in the record. The record also contains the previous analysis and PowerPoint presentation from Mr. Kyle.
Thank you. And Jennifer, do you have that reference to the exhibit for the matrix?
Commissioner Van Beek,
Right,
yes, it is Exhibit 62.
62 right there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, one more question for Mr. Lacey. So the intent of this current residential development property is to mirror what's existing out there next to the Moonstruck properties. Is that, can you speak to that?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, as far as the quality, yes, we're absolutely going to have CCNRs that make sure this is an upper end home project on the larger lots. Again, the density is 1.25 residential density as far as 1.25 acre residential density. The density of the surrounding properties, as was noted, the average lot size is 0.82. So we're less dense than the residential character of the area. I utilize Moonstruck because it's the closest to our project. We're immediately adjacent to it. They're 120 lots. Their average lot size is just under an acre. So we are consistent and compatible and will be of the same or higher quality than the residential development.
Thank you. I guess one more question, Madam Chair. So in this, where this comes down Farmway Road, and what's the traffic impact at the intersection of Farmway and Orchard?
Madam Chair, the traffic analysis of that intersection was evaluated. And again, we're well within levels of service that are the requirements of the highway district. The traffic level gets lower as you go further south, closer to Orchard. Primary traffic from this project is anticipated to go up to that intersection, Parcel 5, and go toward town.
Okay, that was an area of concern to those residents. That is a fairly narrow that runs right alongside the lake, and it's difficult in the higher volume of traffic. But you're saying that the traffic is expected to go south.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, technically north.
Sorry, north.
I think the traffic study estimated about 10% of the traffic would go south. Most of it would go 60% up to that intersection, go toward town, go east on 55. Another percentage would go north, continue north toward Caldwell. And I think it was about 10% that would head back the other direction, out west.
Jan, will you scroll up, please?
Yeah, please.
And would you state for the record again the number of expected increase in trips per day due to the homes and the development that would be put there? I guess for not just the homes, but the commercial traffic portion of that as well.
Madam Chairman and Commissioner Van Beek, I don't think I can quote exactly that number. The issue isn't number of trips. The issue is what's the level of service? What's the acceptable standard for the area? And is it appropriate for that designation of road for those intersections? Can we meet the highway district requirements? We recognize that there will be significant impact in traffic as far as an increase, but that's not the standard. The standard is, do you meet the highway district requirements? And in this case, based on the homes that we're proposing in the commercial development, the highway district and ITD both desire a traffic study performed as part of planning. And again, that's our intent. We did this up front prior to when it's actually required to show that we can and will comply with their conditions. But it's not actually evaluated until planning.
And so just to follow up on that, so there's been testimony read onto the record that indicates ITD questions the ability of that infrastructure to handle the increased traffic.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, that's speculation on the opposition's part. ITD recognizes that this is a plotting issue, and they'll look at that. They describe some of their requirements. Our plan for access, for example, to Highway 55 involves right-in, right-outs on 55. We're proposing 2 ITD. Their response knows that they would like to see 1. Those are the part of the discussions that you have with ITD as part of that process. But again, we will meet the appropriate levels of service. The Idaho Transportation Department has already invested significant dollars in the intersections that have been signalized on Highway 55. This is part of about where I live. This area, it's enhanced safety significantly. They also have plans, not because of this project, but just because of growth generally, to widen Highway 55.
Do you know what the timeline is for that?
Mr. Popperman might be the better person to talk to about that. He's had more direct discussions than I have. But the traffic study and the current evaluation doesn't account for that additional widening, and we still meet standards and requirements as far as level of service and their requirements. So that's an enhancement, really, that even adds more support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to try to get into I like maps, and I wish this one was a little bit, you can't really blow that area up, can you, Jennifer? Enlarge that area we're looking at? I don't think you can do that.
I will try. Tell me if this is getting any better. Is it
Nothing's
closer?
happening. No, nothing moved.
Okay.
I think I can get my question or comment here. So, okay, this is the area we're talking about right here, right?
Right.
And this is Highway 55.
Right.
This goes out to Marsing, Sunny Slope, all that kind of stuff. This goes down to Karcher Interchange,
Yes.
right? And then, let me see here, where are we at now? I got sidetracked. Can you scroll up?
I think it's because I think I can adjust that on this end.
Oh.
I'm not sure why.
Okay, there you go. And this is Orchard going down this way.
Correct.
Right, okay. So, and a point I think I understood, the traffic study was showing in there that the traffic generated from this area here would most likely go down the major road. They wouldn't really come down here to Orchard that much. Is that what the traffic study's saying, Todd?
That's correct. Sure.
Okay.
Study shows, I believe it was 60% going east on 55.
And is this Farmway here?
That's Farmway. 10% going south, down Farmway to Orchard.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of impact on Orchard, but the main impact would be up here and then subsequently down at the Karcher interchange to access the freeway. Okay, it was just, that's what I was kind of thinking. I just wanted to make sure I clarified that.
Exhibit 46 is ITD's thing. And traffic is funny. It's a kind of a complexity because they may not, what happens is, I'll just use myself for example, I work until I find the fastest route. So that would be the most direct, or maybe not the most direct, the least stop signs or stop lights, that sort of a thing. So it's really hard to, I mean, if you go up, if you're supposed to say 55, well, then you know they're going to Nampa to get groceries. Or if they go the other way, are they going, you know, Marsing or the wine country, that sort of a thing. And so Farmway, okay, Farmway, does it kind of, it's not, is it all the way through though? It is.
It goes all the way
all the way to
the one that goes by
over there.
right. Yeah.
The north.
Yeah. So
we're at the very end of that.
and you're at the end of Farmway on the right.
Right. Chair, correct. Farmway is the road to the right of the subject property that tees into Orchard, essentially.
Okay. That, the thing that's problematic about that is all of those subdivisions access Farmway, because that's a direct route across, into Caldwell and all the way across. So it's just the complexity of the traffic issue. And really, until you get the way the concept is going to be, and driveways and all of that sort of thing like that, it's kind of hard to understand how the traffic is going to be, because there are, what did she say, within 1 mile radius, how many subdivisions?
26 subdivisions. 26
subdivisions within 1 mile. So, and it looks to me, and you know, I mean, it looks to me like Farmway would be the direct route. They could go Karcher.
You want this one?
Yeah. That one's really bright. This one's kind of dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I think might that battery.
I can describe it, or I can point.
And turn that one off so it doesn't blind me accidentally. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, you're right in that transportation and the traffic analysis is really a product of platting. When you actually know the number of lots, the amount of lots that are being put forward in a particular phase, the location of access, all those things, both ITD and Canyon 4 recognize that and ask to participate in the platting review. That's required as part of the platting process, subject to conditions of approval. The Moonstruck Subdivision here and others, yes, I agree, some would use Farmway to go up to the north if they're going to Caldwell. I come down here and go up 10th,
Do 10.
which is, if you're heading that direction,
That's more directly.
that's probably more likely. And there's a signalized intersection there at 10th. And these are the county subdivisions that we're talking about within 1 mile, right in this area.
And I think too, as far as Compass addressing the growth and everything, I don't think any municipality or county government we were all caught off guard with the tremendous growth and the pace at which that's happened. And with what's going on in some of the surrounding states and different things too, I don't know that we even seen the real true impact of growth that's going to be in this area. I think it's going to be because we're getting commercials every night on Fox TV and all that kind of stuff because of the quality of life that we enjoy in the state of Idaho. So I think that it's kind of like, I like the fact that the lots are bigger. There's a 1.25, whereas some of these are 0.8 or different, So I like that so that it's a less density in the way that you have it laid out there. I guess that it's been 2 years and I've been part of the process from the beginning, and I think that you have time to go back and think about it, and I guess I could say I've grown up in my job a little bit too. I get a little concerned about using things that are really unknowns. So for me to say that the traffic, I can look at it right now and go, Farmway is not, that is not a good designated arterial right now for that area. But I don't know what they're going to require. We don't have a traffic study or anything. The highway department, we don't know what they're going to require. You might have to put a turn lane in all the way down there for your ingress egress. I don't know because we don't have a concept. So we don't know. Okay, you come off of the highway there, Karcher or whatever, 55. We don't know. There's going to be commercial there, so there's already a commercial building there. Have they put in a turn lane already? So that otherwise, in other words, when they're signaling to turn and slow way down, that's a racetrack to Marcy.
Madam Chair and Jennifer, maybe I'll try to address some of those questions and then I'll show you the commercial development. First comment was Compass's numbers.
Yeah.
And Commissioner, I think inclusion of that in the staff report is a little bit of the tail wagging dog. Those transportation analysis zones that generated by Compass, that comes from and is driven by the land use decisions that is made by each government entity. So they're trying to project that.
Yeah.
But your land use decisions are what should be driving that, and those transportation analysis zones and their planning is updated regularly. So as you mentioned, they were a little underestimated in this area based on what we've seen. Your comment regarding the lot size is right on. They're less dense than what's out there. And then Jennifer, you can go to probably close to my last, not quite my last slide. It's the pictures of commercial.
What's that here?
And while you're looking for that, Jennifer, I just want to make a comment regarding.
It's the second to last slide, Jennifer.
Okay, I just want, while you're doing that, I think this is a really quick comment that the Compass, I was the chairman of the board of Compass a couple of years ago when this issue came to the attention of the Compass planning staff and their planners in Compass, and they were disturbed that some areas in the Compass area were using the TAZs as tools to say whether or not a project was appropriate or not appropriate. The TAZs were not intended to be used as a tool to say it's appropriate to have more or less growth. They were just simply, as Mr. Lakey has explained, a TAZ is simply a reaction to what they see happening in there. They're not intended to be used to justify any kind of growth or non-growth.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would agree with that. One more slide down, Jennifer. Keep going. No, your slide was right, but it was just off.
Yeah, you need to scroll up. There.
There you go. So, Commissioner, that's the existing commercial that's out there. Most recent are those storage units that are down there on the bottom. You kind of see the hood of my car.
Those on Farmway?
That's on Farmway and 55, and that's looking north on Farmway toward the intersection from that new storage unit complex that's been put in there. So you can see that they've widened Farmway as part of their project. And I think we're planning on turn lanes in our traffic study on Farmway. But again, that will ultimately be required by the Highway District to actually evaluate the plat. Not really, again, appropriate at the rezone comp plan level.
What's the middle lower picture? What's that?
The middle lower picture is another picture of the storage unit. Okay. They kind of have the backs to them, so it's, you don't see the individual units, and then they have the landscape provided. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Lakey? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Let me see. Next, I'll just go in order here. David Palfreeman? Palfreeman. David Palfreeman? You are signed up in favor. Are you in favor or against?
In favor.
Okay, very good. We need name and address, please, sir.
My name is David Palfreeman. I reside at 5001 Flagship Place North, Boise, Idaho, 83712. And I've been sworn. On October 15th, 2004, my wife and I acquired this property. Held this property for obviously 16 years, probably longer than many of the residents of Moonstruck. In fact, about 2 to 3 years after we acquired this property, the developer of Moonstruck contacted us and asked us if we'd be willing to sell because he wanted to continue to develop Moonstruck. At that point in time, we've been usually long-term holders of the real estate in the real estate area, and we had no interest in selling at that time. So basically, that was something that we didn't initiate, and not unlike that, also with regards to Valley White, we did not market this property. They came to us. And my wife and I were actually on a trip, and we got a call, and they indicated they'd been following the hearings, and this was a site that they really liked. They wanted to be able to meet with me. We met, and over a period of time, we came out with an agreement, and they closed on approximately 10 acres of ground on the, what would be the northeast corner of the Farmway and Country. This is absolutely an excellent piece of property. And I certainly feel like that it really will be well developed. The type of homes that will be here will be outstanding, because if you're going to pay the type of money that is going to be paid for the lots, then you're going to have some very, very nice homes. And that we, when we met with the neighbors, we've met in the various meetings and that, we agreed to go from 1 acre to 1 1/4 acre lots. In addition to that, we also agreed to downsize the amount of commercial. My particular property basically is about 83 acres, and there was about 45 acres of commercial under the Canyon County plan at that time. And we we compromised to 22 acres. So right now there's 22 acres of commercial on my specific piece of property, which is Carter Farm LLC. And Valley-wide has acquired about 10 acres of that. So there's not a lot of commercial development on that site. Half of it's already been sold. So that was within about 2 weeks of receiving approval then when we received that unsolicited interest. Let me just talk for just a minute here, a little bit about Valley-wide. We were very interested because they are so compatible with what we've got there. And when you hear from them and you hear what we're talking about, you'll see what I mean. Valley-wide basically has been in business for 100 years. They're a agriculture cooperative owned by farmers. It's a farmer commodity cooperative. There's about 350 employees, and they're working in about 24 locations in Idaho, Oregon, Washington, Utah, with some business in Wyoming and Nevada. They go back to 1920 with the formation of the Wendell Grange Co-op. And so after several mergers and acquisitions, et cetera, it became known in 1998 as the Valley-wide Cooperative Inc. They're in all types of rural communities in Idaho. Wendell, Buell, Preston, Madison, Nampa, Shoshone, Jerome, Arco, Gooding, Buell, Hall, Rexford, Rupert, Greenleaf, Soda Springs, et cetera. So when we're talking Idaho, you can tell they're in very rural areas. They're very conscientious to the being compatible with residential use. They're passionate about agriculture and they monetarily support the communities in which they serve. The monetary support includes fairs, rodeos, FFA, and 4-H events. They're highly involved in the 4-H.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to kind of condense and wrap up a little bit here, okay, Mr. Paul Freeman?
Thank you. They also offer youth scholarships.
Okay.
As Todd mentioned, Carter Farm LLC does not have a nitrate issue. There's no nitrates in the area of that farm. Also, with regards to roads, in 2019, the Idaho Transportation Department has been making plans for improvements to Idaho 55 from Middleton Road to Pear Lane. It's 8 miles. And this year, they're basically determining within the next 6 months how much of the ground on the north and south of Carter they're going to condemn. And with the idea of starting the first 2 miles of development in 2021, starting at Middleton and going west. And basically that's my comments. In closing, I want you to know how much I appreciate what you're doing and appreciate your consideration and continuance with this development.
I have a question. Was this the only acreage property that you've owned? Did you farm this area?
In this area, are you saying?
Yes.
Yes.
You did farm?
I don't farm. I'm not a farmer.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how long did you own that property?
Held it for 16 years.
16 years.
I'm not sure in follow-up to that, but this ground has been in active production. You leased the ground to a
farmer. It's obviously Red Bricks, Barracks that farm the property. They're long-term farmers out there.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I have, I can read your writing. Greg, is it Greg Marks?
Greg means I was not testifying.
You're not going to testify? Okay. Let's see. Brian, is it Brian?
Yes.
Okay. And your last name?
Rollins.
Rollins. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Madam Chair, my name is Brian Rollins, address 902 North 21st Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. And I have been sworn in as well.
Okay.
Commissioners, just to introduce myself, I'm a commercial real estate broker here in the Valley. I've been for 9 years. And as I have seen some of the testimony and some of the concern about just the demand for commercial property in the county, I wanted to just address that for a moment here with you and talk through that. I've had my own firm for about 1.5 years now. Before starting my own firm, I was with Mark Bottles for the previous 8 years. And just kind of to speak to our experience in that corridor, if you drive up and down Highway 55, you'll see lots of Mark Bottles signs in that area. So I have a great familiarity with a lot of the development parcels along that stretch and just the stories behind each one of those and whatnot. I would start by saying, well, I should also say that storage project on that same corner there on the east side of the Farmway, we also had a hand in 3 or 4 years ago when that was put through. So I would start by saying that commercial zoning really isn't all that it takes for a good piece of development ground, especially along Highway 55. One of the primary issues there is access. So I can certainly understand some of the concerns that there is already commercially zoned property further to the east along that highway. I would say specifically on the access point, much of it is very poorly accessed because of the rules with ITD. This corner is ideal because of the commercial zone and the ability to access that with that light that was just installed by ITD on Farmway. In fact, Valleywide, to Mr. Palfreyman's comment, has been a client of mine for quite some time. And we looked up and down this stretch of road for probably 2 years looking for a site that would be a good fit for them. And like Mr. Palfreyman said, we couldn't find a site for Valleywide, even though there is other commercial zone property due to the issues that I just discussed. And so unsolicited, I did call him as soon as I saw the approvals last summer. We put a deal together like he mentioned. But much of that just because of the appeal for commercial, because it is the right place for it. The other thing I would say is that commercial tax spaces are very needed. Recently, I met with both the City of Star administration as well as the City of Eagle. Both of them are trying to increase their commercial tax base because they don't have enough of it. Star, for example, is about 96% residential, and so trying to increase their tax revenue to meet their budget requirements requires commercial. So they actually have some conditions to require commercial as part of developments that are approved. So I do think it's important to put commercial where it is needed. And I guess the last point I would make is also about traffic. I think I'm hearing a lot of comments just about traffic and some concerns there. I would also encourage just in your consideration that a lot of those discussions are about these folks that are looking for amenities or services that are driving, as we discussed, 5 miles to the east over to the commercial center of Nampa for their restaurants and amenities and services. Providing commercial near where they live actually reduces the strains on our roads because it makes those trips shorter and helps to reduce our traffic issues.
Okay.
So I would just say in closing that I am in support of this project. I think smart planning, to your point earlier about growth, smart planning is what we really need in this valley. I certainly see that in my business because of the imminent growth and the people coming. I do think this is smart planning with the approval here, and I ask for your support.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Okay, next is it Carly Weaver? Yeah. And yes.
I'm Carly, and our address is 2114 North 20th Street, Nampa, Idaho 83687. And I work for Valleywide Cooperative. I am their new communications specialist. I just started in January, and I have been really excited to work for this company. They've been super great in bringing me on. I'm really excited at the diversity in the divisions that they have. We have agronomy business, so we serve farmers, and we have, like Commissioner Van Beek touched on, our energy business, and we also have our retail farm supply stores. So it's very cool that we get to serve customers of lots of different types, and we serve in small rural communities. Those are farmers and lifestyle farms, those types of things. And my favorite part about my job is the community giving. That is the best part. I brag to my friends all the time. Got to present a big check today, you know, got to help kids out. I was in 4-H, I was in FFA, I grew up on a farm. I studied ag economics in college, and I'm glad to work for the company that I do. And not only do we serve the rural communities with the products that we provide, but that with the community giving aspect and giving to 4-H and FFA and just nature.
Very nice. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Downs.
So would you just talk a little bit, if you could, would you be able to describe anything of the plans for this site, or are they developed enough to talk about that?
What's your question?
Well, the plans for this particular site for your company.
For it to be for our retail division, so it would just be a farm supply store.
And would they sell gas and stuff there too, probably?
With a gas pump canopy just for consumer, just
consumer. Okay. And it was indicated by Todd that'd be similar to the Legacy. Is that, to your understanding as an employee, is that what they're looking at?
To my understanding.
Okay. All right. That's what I wanted.
And that they would also, to your concern earlier about two things, but there would be no like bulk storage of any fuels or like fuels like gas.
I appreciate that. Sorry, just to reiterate, so I appreciate Commissioner Dale's question. No bulk storage on that. Okay.
Just enough to supply the normal gas can.
Commercial retail flow, right?
Just the consumer, yeah.
All right.
Any other questions for Carly?
That's
Thank
it.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Dave Tuthill.
Okay, I get to take my guess. Let's go. This is an update of my presentation a year and a half ago regarding water.
Okay.
And my name is David R. Tuthill, Jr. My address is 2918 North El Rancho Place, Boise, Idaho, 3704. I am an owner of Idaho Water Engineering, and I'm here representing the applicant to say that as far as a water supply, for example, water in this project, you know, I have a few slides Jennifer kindly just put up. So we can go to the next slide, please. And these slides are in your packet. So one of the questions that has come up in some of the letters from the neighbors is about water availability. And it turns out that ample water is available for this site. In fact, this is one of the few locations in the state where you can apply for a groundwater right, and the Department of Water Resources will advertise it, not really expecting any protests. If you go south of Lake Gold, it's different in private area. There's a water supply concern there for the aquifer. But north of Lake Gold, that concern doesn't exist. There's ample supply to recharge through the Boise Project Board of Control. They bring in surface water, plus it appears from the hydrology that the lake leaks some. This aquifer is a little bit below the lake, so pumping from this aquifer won't affect the lake. So it turns out that the Boise Project Board of Control won't protest with applications in this area. This is the way it was a year and a half ago. I just confirmed with the Department of Water Resources. That's still the way it is. So in this particular case, we have surface water that's being brought in. Groundwater there's an existing water right for supplemental use on the property, in addition to the surface water. And what we're proposing in this project is only water to be diverted for household use and individual wells. You can get an individual well opportunity anywhere in the state. An individual well is just such a small amount of water. And that's normally for up to a half-acre of irrigation, a small individual well. You don't even need a water right permit for that. And that's what's proposed on these 1.25 acre lots. All right, next slide, please. How's the aquifer doing? Well, this is a rock solid, stable aquifer. Looking back, the last 40 years where records are available, the aquifer just hasn't moved. It's nicely supplied by water that's brought in from the project. It's Boise River water. It's brought in from by the Boise Project Board of Control. And so that provides an ongoing supply of water for the aquifer. It's just rock salt, and we just can't see. Looking, and I looked at all the water level records in the area, and I just can't find any area where the aquifer is moving. It's just rock salt. Next slide, please. So the connection to Lake Lowell, as I mentioned, has been a concern by the Boise project because they don't want water that they're bringing into Lake Lowell to be sucked out by different wells. And that is why they're objecting to wells that are south of the river. So, next slide, please.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you have an elevation differential between the lake and this property.
Yes.
And so this property is lower than the elevation of the lake is.
Well, the property is about the same location, but the aquifer is lower.
Okay.
So the lake is about 19 feet deep on average. The depth of groundwater is about 40 to 100 feet deep in this area, and the actual level of the lake is about the same as the surface level of this property.
Okay. And so I guess my question is, if you have discharge from septic, so you've studied the groundwater flow patterns, and then does the osmotic pressure from the lake being with that aquifer being lower keep it from flowing into there and contaminating the lake given the proximity of that end at the south end? Can you talk about that just a tiny bit?
Thank you. Just introduce this next slide.
Okay.
I have two left. And this shows the direction of flow in the valley, and it's generally toward the west. So it's not flowing back to the lake. It's just basically the groundwater flows to the west. Now the septic system is a different question, and that's what's been addressed by Southwest District Health. So they look at septic systems to ensure that they won't contaminate the aquifer and give their approval accordingly. And as we heard, that's been the case. But as far as the water supply itself, that's not. It's down far enough that it's not close enough to be contaminated by the septic system.
Okay. And I guess that answers the question. I know you're not the Southwest District Health, but the flow pattern of the water is away from, not toward the lake.
That's correct. It's to the west.
Okay, thank you.
And finally, I think the next slide is my last one. Domestic wells are typically less than 1,000 gallons per day, so they're minuscule amounts of water that they pump. Of course, over the course of the year, it's about 1 acre foot per well, and that's enough to provide about a third of an acre of irrigation water, very small amount. And finally, the conclusion slide, I believe, is the next one. Please, Jennifer. Yes, that's it. So I have some other backup slides if need be, but for my time, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Madam Chair.
Any more questions?
Yes. So the cumulative effect, you've given the statistics of 1 acre foot of water per household. So if you have 80 households, like what does that look like? Because that always is the question for people. I don't want my well diminished. I don't want the aquifer diminished. So it's really the cumulative effect that we're talking about when you go through those layers to get to the aquifers. So can you address that, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek. It's a very good question, but because of the supply that's coming in from the river through the South Boise Project work, the Boise River water, that source of supply maintains a very good aquifer. Now, when you look at the number of wells in the area, there are hundreds of wells in this area, and it's amazing how the aquifer provides for all of these wells. But the bottom line is there's an equilibrium. This 80 feet per acre, 80 acre feet per year is inconsequential. It's minuscule compared to the overall water supply. The problems that they've had with wells to the east, the different subdivisions, have been, in my estimation, well construction problems. It's not an aquifer problem. The water's there, but sometimes a well will fail because it's well constructed.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. How deep is the average? Would you have to have wells in here to do adequate water supply?
Madam Chairman, Commissioner Dale, typically the wells are a couple hundred feet deep.
Right.
They find water at static levels 40 to 80 typically. So that would be a standard.
Okay. What is your official title?
I'm the owner of Idaho Water Engineering.
Okay.
I've been working full-time with water for 44 years in Idaho.
Okay.
Years are adding up. I worked for the Department of Water Resources for 33 years and was director at first time.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. John Sabala?
Hi, John Sabala. My address is 4271 North Nines Ridge Lane, Boise. And thank you, Madam Chairman, Commissioner Van Beek, and Commissioner Dale for your time again today. And I wanted to start out just a few points, but I think it's important to reiterate some of what I said last time I was here. And as a developer, I really take it seriously. A few things I take very seriously being in development, and that is the importance of acting responsibly, being honest, and also being respectful of the people that you may affect, being your neighbors. And in saying that, you know, it's easy sometimes to just use words or be not be as prudent as you should by hiring experts that can tell you things that you do not understand yourself. And I think it's really important to do that because many developers don't. And acting responsibly before you engage in development is really, really important because you're involving all of the people that you're ultimately going to work with anyway. You start out by going with the municipality, going to the staff, getting their feedback, understanding what their smart growth plan might be, what the future intentions are of land in the area. And originally on the map itself, it was designated for future residential, which is what interested myself. And so we made decisions to acquire the land based on what they were telling us. You also engage with ITD, you engage with the highway district, you have meetings with the sewer district, Southwest District Health, et cetera, to understand their feelings about the property. That's acting responsibly as a developer. And then, you know, you proceed, you have neighborhood meetings. You want to be very honest with your neighbors. It doesn't do you any good to mislead them. And you're also being respectful towards them in doing so, and engaging with professionals where you're not trying to represent what you think might be, but you're representing what those that know what is, you know, is important to those neighbors and to yourself. So we take those things very seriously, and we've engaged, and it's not cheap to do those things. And I also think that it's the responsibility of neighbors too, to understand that their comments or what they might represent or misrepresent is very important for you folks as well. Because there have been comments that I don't think, and I'll wrap it up, but that I don't think are representative of what is actually happening. For instance, Farmway. Between the lake and Karcher itself, it's been said numerous times, and I've heard it from opposition, that there's a lot of traffic on that road. It's not true. There is not. And I would encourage you all to go there and I would be happy to meet with any neighbor at any time and sit on that road to understand some of these things. The same thing with the water flows and representations like that. We hire professionals. We went to Southwest District Health. We got their plan from the director at Southwest District Health that showed everything. It's a $65,000 study that answers all of the questions as it applies to important things with the aquifer and so forth, water flows, et cetera. And, you know, I just want to reiterate how important it is to be honest and to be responsible, and that's what we've done, and I want you to know that. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Sabala?
No, I don't have any.
Are you're the developer?
I'm sorry?
You are the developer?
Yes.
are you going to build? Are you the developer builder?
Well,
Or are you going to, how does this work?
yeah, and I appreciate you asking me that. And at the last hearing, Madam Commissioner, you had asked me at the end of the hearing, you said, John, do you plan to flip this property?
That's exactly what I said.
And I looked at you and I said, I do not. That's being honest. We have gone forward. We're working with an engineer right now. We've actually submitted plans. 25 lots, by the way, is important to point out. It's not 100 lots. It's not. It's 1.25 acres. There's 25 lots on the land that I own, not what Mr. Halterman owns. And yeah, we want to do it right. And I think to do a development right, you build a product that's representative of what you want to sell, that's conducive to the area. And because we're surrounded, obviously, it's been pointed out numerous times by both commercial as well as residential. So yeah, we intend to build some specs as an example and also sell individual.
So you will sell it to individual developers or other custom home builders?
Well, or users, you know, people.
Yeah, right.
People who want to develop their own homes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because I like to do things right. I like to, you know, so I think that, yeah.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
And Madam Chair, before you go, I think it's important just to, it hasn't really been stated here in this part of the hearing. We've had it previously, but when we're looking at that map up there, you own about half of the acreage, or how much of the land do you own? How much of the land does Mr. Falkenman own?
46 acres that we own towards Riverside.
Okay.
So it's the acreage that's, yeah, to the, it would be to the west.
Right. Okay. And you own the rest of it?
83.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think it's important to make sure everybody understands it. There's two owners involved in this.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Very
and
good.
SS Karcher and Karcher Farms.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No more questions? Okay. At this time, we have Tom Blaisdell. Are you, there you go. I see that wave.
Okay.
I see that wave. Yes, and you are against this project. I need your name and address, please.
Tom Blaisdell, 15883 Canyon Lake Street in Caldwell, 83607. I am opposed to this. I've been opposed throughout. I think there's a few points we need to bring up that Mr. Lakey has about traffic, Mr. Sabala as well. I'm a little concerned because everyone that's in the county commissioner office is from Boise, and yet the residents that live here are obeying what the governor has said, and we're all through WebEx. So I think that's a little unfair to us. The other thing about traffic, we talked about that. Commissioner Van Beek was bringing it up, as were you, Madam Commissioner, as well. The Howmessers live right on Orchard. They were trying to log in, but they could not. They asked that their letters be read in from the hours. Here's a mini traffic under study that Debbie did in 1 hour on July 7th of 2020. Between 4:45 and 5:45 p.m., she counted 137 vehicles passing by directly on Farmway at that time, just in that small half mile. 121 were personal vehicles, 9 were utility and service vehicles, 3 were towing boats, trailers, and motorcycles. There was a dump truck semi-trailer, and also there was a few Milky Way milk hauling semi-trucks. There's a lot of semi-trucks. I live just down the street in Canyon Lake Subdivision. There's a lot more traffic than you think on this road, and adding 80 more homes, or even like Mr. Sabala said, 25, it's going to add quite a bit of more traffic, and especially the 10 acres that apparently have been already sold to that Valleywide that hasn't even been okayed by you guys yet. Speed limit is 50 miles an hour, but there's a lot of math going on. I mean, if you're adding all those vehicles with 2.5 cars per household, that's 1,600 vehicle trips per day moving in and out of that subdivision, just the subdivision, that new subdivision. And that, you know, and we haven't even talked about ingress, egress as well. The storage units, you brought those up. There is no ingress, egress, right turn only because the highway isn't support. It's not to 5 lanes yet. I mean, eventually that's going to get there, but everyone's going to have to go in and out of Orchard. I mean, that's a lot of traffic. There's people, there's kids that live on that street. There's a lot of traffic, a lot more than you think, and there are no sidewalks. I would recommend, as I stated in my letter, I say we work with the city of Caldwell. You are not in the impact zone in this neighborhood. I recommend that we get the city of Caldwell involved and move it across the street if they really want to have this big subdivision plus this valley-wide feed-in fuel. There is a gas station less than a mile away. We all get gas from if we need to, but there's quite a few more just a few miles down the way. I'm surprised that the representatives from the Fuel and Farm place, there's a lot of shovel-ready, city-serviced, lots of lots up and down 55 that are already ready to go. And I'm going to stop my time because I stopped everybody else and I thought that was unfair. But thank you very much for listening. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Blaisdell?
I do not. Thank you, Tom.
Just one, Madam Chair. Jennifer, did Mr. Messer's letter get read onto the record?
Yes. Commissioner Van Beek, yes, Andy Hume, his letter was read. His wife also submitted a letter as Exhibit 81.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Blaisdell.
Thank you for your time.
William Morrow.
Thank you, commissioners. I'm an attorney in Nampa. I live in Caldwell. I represent the Westlake Homeowners Association in this particular case. And that, just so it's clear on this record, the people that are part of that association are the Mr. and Mrs. Weston, John Kernkamp, Mr. and Mrs. Messer, Mr. and Mrs. Blaisdell, and Mr. Nelson. So I was asked for today's hearing to just give a quick overview of Judge McKee's decision that affects your deliberations in this case. So that's what I'm going to do. The judge found error by the county for failure to consider our request for reconsideration after the decisions were initially made. And the judge found that the failure was a violation of a statutory provision in the Land Use Act 6535(2)B. The court held that reconsideration is a mandatory step in the process. The court ordered this body as commissioners to take up the request for reconsideration on any matter not subsumed, quote unquote, from the judge by the new hearing. Well, today is the new hearing. Everything that I've heard so far seems to be based on what was presented before. Therefore, nothing so far has been subsumed by this new hearing, which means that everything that's in the request for reconsideration is going to have to be addressed when this body makes an ultimate decision. Specifically on this point, the court directed that the body either harmonize its findings and conclusions with the Planning and Zoning Commission's decisions, or explain the reasons why it has decided the issue differently, and it should carefully demonstrate the basis for change, whether the differences are due to additional facts or different interpretations on facts, or arise because of differences in policy or application of policy and facts. That's the criteria that's set down by Judge McKee for your review of the reconsideration and the planning and zoning findings. Now, the court also said that this hearing needs to be a plenary hearing, which I think that's what's taking place. A plenary hearing is a complete hearing. It's not piecemeal. It's not breaking issues down between, let's say, development agreements and comprehensive plan or zone changes. It's a complete hearing of all the issues. Procedurally, the district court requires in this decision that you first take up the issue of the comprehensive plan change and then resolve it. And then only after that's done, take up the issue of the zone change and resolve it. And that really is a distillation of the judge's decision. Thank you. I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner Van Beek?
Madam Chair, Mr. Morrow, I do have a question for you, for you're representing the group of those opposed. I believe it was Andy Howmester, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, that had provided a detailed condition of approval that they would find acceptable. So first of all, is that exhibit in the report, in the staff report? And then second of all, are those still conditions of approval that they find acceptable?
We can't hear him. You're
Hello?
there now. Yes. We hear you.
All right. I'm not sure that if that was a question to me or a question to the clerk, but I believe the letter is in the record. And I believe that in the letter, Mr. Hausmesser did talk about some of the issues that were part of our request for reconsideration and were also addressed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but not everything.
Okay, so Jennifer, can you direct us into the exhibit that represents Mr. Hausmesser's conditions of approval that he provided at the last hearing?
We do have a letter from Andy as Exhibit 82 for this hearing, and it was a little difficult to hear you. Were you also wanting his previous exhibit?
Yes.
That's 68, Jen.
68, yes.
Here from Tom Blaisdell, who says that's a letter from John Kerncamp.
Okay, I apologize. And I couldn't remember. I knew it was generated in that group. So I'm sure. Can you direct me?
68, I believe, it says John Blaisdell.
Okay.
Not Blaisdell.
Kernkamp.
Kernkamp. 69 is the conditions by John Kernkamp.
And I think that we have either Mr. Hausmesser or John Kernkamp on the phone. Is that true?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, and neither one of them were sworn in.
Mr. Morrow, do you know if the people that you're representing, do you have access, first of all, to the information that I'm referencing that was provided on April 27th of 2019?
I think so.
Are you in 69?
I'm in 68.
Or 68?
$68 is, I think, deals with the.
There were a list of questions generated from our staff that come out of the findings of fact, and then proposals for that this group suggested be included in a development agreement in the event that this development was approved. Mr. Lake, do you have a copy of this information?
I have a copy.
Okay. And was that at any time discussed with the applicants that you represent?
Chair, Commissioner, you want me to?
We don't have what's really on record.
We should be.
I can respond to that.
Or in your rebuttal.
Sure, thank you.
Please.
And I'm sorry, Zach, what did you tell me?
We need to report the hearing to create a record.
Right.
And we did have this early on the microphone.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't have any more questions for Bill Morrow.
Oh, you do?
I don't have any questions for Bill.
Questions for tomorrow. That is this time. I just can't find that. I can't find that here. So, okay. Let's see. Who else do we have here?
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Craig, are you still there? Well, you were not. Okay. Have I missed anybody on here that you were going to testify Tricia, I talked with you, but you didn't want to speak. Is there anybody else that was sworn in that I missed you? No?
Oh, through chat, Tom Blaisdell let me know that Andy Halmisser, if I'm saying that correctly, his computer wasn't working, but he's with Mr. Blaisdell.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Does he want to speak?
Yeah, I don't know.
Does Mr. Halmisser, does he want to testify?
Yes, and I apologize. They could not get their computer to work out here on the WebEx, so I invited them over to my house because I had a working laptop.
Okay,
So
we need to swear him in.
and his wife would like to testify.
His wife or both of them?
Both of them, Andy and Debbie, if possible.
Andy and Debbie.
And yeah, and if you have any questions for Mr. Morrow, I think he can address the issues from the judge.
So we want to, they are against it, so we need to swear both of them in, Andy and Debbie.
Okay, they're here.
I don't know if you can see us. Andy is here. Here. See me?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Andy Halmisser, Debbie Halmisser, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Okay. So we'll go ladies first, Debbie.
Okay. So I'm in my letter, which I believe is included as an exhibit. I had asked that it be put into the record, which it was not. And I'll only take a few minutes to reiterate the concerns that I heard said about the traffic not being very heavy on Farmway. And I'd be curious to know how Mr. Sabala would characterize the traffic as not very heavy. It is very heavy. Our back porch is right on Farmway Road. We have semis, we have dump trucks, we have tractor trailer trucks, and in 1 hour's time, which Tom shared from my letter, last week on a Tuesday afternoon, I counted 137 vehicles in 1 hour roaring past our house. In addition, the speed limit is 50 miles an hour, which is not enforced, and very often travelers along Farmway exceed 50 miles an hour. You're talking about putting in a subdivision and commercial development that will utilize Farmway for access. And you're talking about having those vehicles access a stretch of road on which the speed limit is already 50 miles an hour. That's not safe. It doesn't make sense. You're not taking into consideration school bus traffic. Just this past week, the county was at the intersection of Farmway and Karcher for another crash. You're talking about community services impact, and everybody's kind of saying that doesn't matter. I did some research. There are 15 fire departments in all of Canyon County, serving a population of 207,027 people in an area of 588 miles. There is one fire department per 13,801 people and one fire department per 39 square miles. And that is from the county office website. In Idaho, Canyon County is ranked 44th of 44 counties in fire departments per capita, and 3rd of 44 counties in fire department per square miles. Without city water, where is fire suppression going to come from? If there is a fire on any of our properties, we have no fire protection, and yet you're talking about adding even more homes and commercial development and a gas station with no water available for fighting fires. So, the other points in my letter have been made, but I think the traffic on Farmway, everybody there today is from Boise, and they're making these blanket statements that there's no traffic on Farmway. I beg to differ. I live here. There is traffic, and it's obnoxious. And our peace and our serenity are impacted every single day by the amount of heavy traffic, fast traffic, and over the road, semi-tractor trailers, double dumps, double Milky Way hauling trucks 4 times a day. Our traffic is already excessive. Please, we do not want this to develop. That's it. I guess that's all I have to say. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Any questions for Any questions? No. Thank you, Debbie. Andy.
He's coming.
We're coming.
We're
okay.
playing.
My name's Andy Helmesser. I live at 15981 Lunar Way in Caldwell, 83607. I was going to talk a little bit about what the 3rd Judicial District had ruled. I think Bill Morrow pretty well covered that, and he's more of a expert on the law than I am. But I have a prepared statement. I want to read part of it. The property owners proposing this development are both residents of Ada County, and they don't really care how this project will affect the lives of those of us who live here. They're only looking to make a profit at the expense of the Canyon County residents. As elected officials, you guys have an obligation to the people who put you in office. Please respect this obligation and listen to the views of the citizens that live here, the ones that elected you to this office. Please listen to the opposition by the city of Caldwell. How about listening to the opposition presented by your own Canyon County Development Department and the Planning and Zoning Commission, who unanimously recommended against this project? A project of this intensity needs to be in an area serviced by city water and city sewers. The project violates about 15 goals and policies outlined in your own comprehensive plan. Traffic on Archer and Farmway Road, my wife just gave you a 1-hour snapshot of what goes on Farmway Road in our backyard. I'm against the environmental degradation of adding 80 to 100 septic systems when the area is already being plagued with nitrate contamination. There is no need for any more unspecified commercial development. Anything that anyone could possibly want is available within 5 miles or less. The added stress on the groundwater supply, I don't care what your experts say. I too am a geologist. I've been dealing with groundwater issues for years. That's a huge stress. And he talked about 80 lots with, there was no mention whatsoever about how much water the commercial ventures are going to use. And you can't even speculate on that when we don't know what the commercial ventures are going to be. Granted, this project's going to bring more tax dollars into the county coffers. Woo-hoo! But the same project located in an area that has city services will bring the same tax dollars in, and it will also add dollars to help grow the needed infrastructure. Part of your job is to provide the citizens of Canyon County with a legacy of clean air, clean water, and a safe place to live. Please support the citizens that elected you and not the greed of a group of developers from outside the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Any questions I can answer?
Any questions for him?
Yes, I have a question. Good afternoon, Mr. Helmesser. This is Commissioner Van How are you?
Good, Ms. Van Beek. How are you?
I'm good. I have a question for you because I've heard a couple of people in the group that are opposing this indicate that they think it would be more appropriate to have this development couched under a city services and be served by Caldwell. So in that process, has this group talked about what the impact of that would look like on the infrastructure, given that city services are supported by a higher density, where you might have 3 to 4 houses per acre as opposed to 1 house on one of the properties?
Regardless of the acreage, there's still going to be a huge impact environmentally on this project. I don't think I don't know whether the developers have attempted or even talked about bringing city services to this property. I'm sure they're trying to avoid the expense of that because I'm sure it's a huge expense. But that's the reason we have cities, and that's the reason we have the impact zones. because they're designed to control this.
And I understand what you're saying, and so there's a, first of all, a timing issue because the services are far enough away that it would be cost prohibitive for a developer to pull those to that side. But in the event that that were to happen, the portion that would tax the infrastructure, maybe road systems and the schools, might triple or quadruple in terms of development on that parcel. So right now there's 80, but potentially with a city connection, you could have, you know,
4 times that amount.
Well, that's possible. They supposedly have determined they want to put in estate lots and nice houses. You know, they have to, that would be a decision for the developers.
Well, and that's where I'm trying to, I guess, get a feel from your group on, I know that you live in that either Moonstruck or Moonstruck West, and that's a nice development. I've had relatives in that before. So some of those don't meet the 1 acre lot size, but this project, I'm just trying to get a feel, and I ferret out both sides. So right now in rural Canyon County, this would qualify or does qualify the proposal for 1 house for every 1.25 acres. And if it were connected to city services, let's say that you were successful in this and that the timing wait, the impact of that would quadruple or maybe triple for the number of houses on the lot side. So that would create, it is catch-22. I'm not advocating for one side or the other. I'm just asking if you've discussed or thought about in the world of options.
I would much prefer the larger lots. There's no doubt about that, and less density. And I am adamantly opposed to the commercial zone. That has been my issue throughout this whole thing. And now they're talking about putting in a feed and fuel place, which means another gas station. And they testified that they won't have bulk storage, but they will have underground storage tanks that will each one, I don't know how many they will have, one for each type of gasoline, but each one of those will have the ability to take an entire tanker load of fuel. And that is a minimum of 8,000 gallons. So multiply that by 3 fuel grades, and we've got 24,000 gallons of toxic fuel buried underground, sitting on top of the aquifer that we are all sucking water out of for our wells and our systems. One little one of those tanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I have a placeholder for Mr. Lakey to rebuttal if he knows on the proposal from the valley-wide, if there the number of bays or stations, what that residential service component would look like. So
I would like to know some storage.
Okay. Thank you, Andy, very much.
Thank you so much.
And Madam Chair.
Oh.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on a little bit of Andy's testimony there because, and I don't know if there's anybody here who can give some facts, but I don't believe that a gas station takes a whole tanker load at a time, and generally they don't have 8,000 gallon tanks under there. And anyway, those tanks that are allowed by law through DEQ that today are so secure, they're way more secure than the tanks were back in the day when they created leaks and that sort of stuff. And we just don't hear about tanks leaking into the ground today with the modern technology. They're safe. They're not going to. Anyway, I just want to, and I don't know if there's anybody here that can verify how many gallons of the tank is in there, but I don't think it's an 8,000 gallon tank that Chevron puts in their gas tank for one tank. So I just have to say I don't buy that. Anyway, thanks. I didn't have any other question really. I just
Okay, I have one, if I could, please.
He's gone.
Huh?
He left, I think.
Andy's gone?
Yeah.
No, he's good.
Oh, here?
Okay.
I just muted that mic for a second.
Oh, okay. He got walked away, but.
Andy? Oh, I can see him.
Yes.
Here, can you hear me?
He's back, yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. I just have a question for you because one of the big things as a commissioner that I have to look at all sides, look at everything around it, and personal property rights. I think that is one of the most wonderful things about living in the United States of America. And let's just bring it down to the state of Idaho. It's a big old deal, personal property rights. And Mr. Paul Freeman has has that, what is it, 83 acres? And I don't know, I've not ever had a conversation with the man, I've only seen him at the hearing. But lots of landowners, and especially rural farm ag land, we are working, it is a very fine line for us to preserve the ag land and that sort of thing, and balance the property, personal property rights. And some landowners, that 83 acres, and I have not talked to him, and if I'm putting words in your mouth or making up a story, Mr. Paul Freeman, you are in this room, you just give me the old stop it now, okay? But their land is everything they have in the world. It's their inheritance, it's their retirement, it's their medical, it's everything they have. And I sit here and I've got to look at all sides of this. And Commissioner Van Beek made an incredible, an excellent point. And that is to have it needs to be in the city area of services and that sort of thing. And when you do larger high density, you do go that way. You want that closer to cities, that type of a thing. That's smart development, smart growth to do that. But when you have 25 homes on 45 or more acres, that's a little bit different. And not only that, the thing that you like the most about this is the rural flavor. You sit, and I kind of remember somewhat of the testimony prior, and I don't know, I'm looking at my attorney now to make sure, can I reference that, Mr. Wesley? The reference they made, because I believe they are from, I want to say Iowa, and you moved here, and this is kind of your dream home, and that's why you chose Idaho. I remembered, maybe it was Debbie that said that, but I was very impressed by that. And that is exactly Mr. Paul Freeman in another, it's the same story, but a different chapter. And he has 83 acres and it's everything, and he loves it too. And I have to sit here and I have to know, wow, he has personal property rights and so do you. And I've got to find the place where you can live together. And Commissioner Van Beek just made that wonderful point that with 1.25 acres, should this go through? I've not made up my mind on this. This is a whole new day for Commissioner White. And should this go through, if it didn't and it became the city, like she just said, there would be 3 times the density on this project. And I heard that where your concern is with the commercial. And that's a whole nother thing that we've got to take into consideration. And I appreciate that too, Andy, very much. Thank you. Thank you for the time, for taking the time to be here. And I appreciate it very much. Okay.
Well,
thank you, Madam Chair.
Your comments.
He's trying to speak, I think. But I want to thank you for that. And I do agree that I was going to make that same point that Commissioner Van Beek did, that we have this property, and this might be more appropriate for our wrap up, but this property will develop at some point. And either now or later, if it does later and the city comes in, a developer is required to put more houses and make it pay for itself. And so anyway, I appreciate the point that was made over here.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dale. Thank you, Commissioner Van Beek. We have now, there's no one else.
There is Tricia Cochran.
She decided she wanted to speak.
Is out there, yeah.
Tricia, you are going to speak?
Yes, just real briefly.
Okay. We didn't swear you in, did we?
Oh, yeah, I did.
I thought
Okay. Please.
Okay, so I am actually the site manager at the storage facility that was just built on Karcher and Farmway. I also reside here. And we are for the building of the subdivision. And as far as the traffic concern, I do see that being a potential issue. I would definitely suggest taking a look at that, but the main access point being on Farmway. As far as the semis and everything, the traffic, they do have a significant amount of larger vehicles and recreational vehicles on Farmway. But I've seen most of the issues with the traffic coming down Karcher, not down Farmway. where it's 50 miles per hour towards Orchard.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Tricia?
No, Madam Chair, I just want, and Tricia, you see those traffic out there and it's 50, and I would say that as this area builds and develops and more traffic hits that short section between Orchard and Highway 55, I would anticipate that the Highway Department would at some point evaluate that speed limit out there, and it may be appropriate for them to adjust that downward to accommodate the type of traffic that's going to be out there.
I absolutely agree, and I think that that would be a great thing to look at even this soon.
Okay.
There's no reason to be doing that stretch.
Yeah, it's a pretty short stretch of highway there. You don't need to go 50 there.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Tricia. I got to apologize. I think I'm getting too much of my own CO2 here, and yeah, Suzanne. At this point, there's no one else signed up to speak, so Mr. Lakey, please.
Okay, Commissioners, again, before I start, for the record, Todd Lakey, Fort Lakey Law, address 12905, District Court, Idaho. Commissioners, I'm going to start and respond again to some of the kind of more generic comments that were made about water and wastewater and traffic. As was mentioned, we submitted the technical analysis to address all of those questions, factual, scientifically. As is often the case, they reference the Planning and Zoning Commission decision. As often the case, an applicant responds to the comments that were made at the Planning and Zoning Commission and makes adjustments, provides additional information. This is a de novo hearing in front of this board, so you can address those things that were raised. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, we brought to you the hydrological analysis because of some of the comments that were made. We found the nutrient pathogen study, so we addressed the water and addressed the wastewater, and the Planning and Zoning didn't have that. We didn't have those at that time. So new information has been provided that supports your previous decision and supports approval. In this case, just to mention again, the analysis on the water and the aquifer. This is a strong aquifer. A lot of water, it's well supplied. There's no evidence that there will be a negative impact on wells, on the aquifer, or on the neighbors. The wastewater, again, Southwest District Health is the expert. They looked at this very extensive study, which in that study, it says specifically that nitrates do not migrate off the properties. So that's not an issue. That was a 20-year window that they were modeling. We have to do a subdivision engineering report as part of our preliminary plat approval, so they look at every specific lot. This lays the groundwork that says individual well and septic are appropriate. The subdivision engineering report says this lot, this location has to be this big. So those have been and will be addressed. But they're the expert when it comes to geology and hydrology and development in the area. And they've stated that this study supports our application for individual well and septic. Traffic. That we're not saying that there's not significant traffic. We recognize that there will be, but that's not the issue. It's not there's significant traffic, therefore, as one of the opposition stated, we don't want any development out here. The appropriate analysis is the transportation study and the review by the Highway District and ITD. Do we meet their standards? What are levels of service out there? What levels of traffic do we have? Do the intersections meet those standards? Do we need to build additional improvements as far as turn lanes and other things? And we've acknowledged that there are some of those things that we have to do, but that's part of that plotting and review process. Our traffic study shows that we can and we will meet the ITD and Highway District standards, and they'll be actively involved in that review. As was mentioned by the commissioners and the opposition, they want this low-density type of residential development. We're asking for the same thing that pretty much all of those in opposition have right now. If we wait for the city, it is going to be 3 or 4 times more dense. You're going to have more traffic. You're going to have more infrastructure requirements. And it will change the character of the area. We want to preserve the rural residential quality that exists clearly out there with 640 lots, 26 subdivisions in the county. We want to preserve that and do the same thing to maintain that high quality development that exists out there now. Just a couple of the comments. In response to Mr. Morrow's comments, the previous reconsideration that was addressed by the district court, that essentially is moot. Now you're having a second hearing. It's a brand new hearing. It's not restricted in any way. It's wide open. Anybody can comment about anything they want. You're redoing the second hearing. With that, that moots that reconsideration issue because you're backing up before that. They would have another opportunity to address reconsideration if they choose to. But that issue is moot. No negative responses as far as fire districts will meet their requirements and complying with fire flows and other required issues out there. As was mentioned, we have and plan to use a pressurized irrigation system instead of the individual well and septic, and that will reduce the water consumption by the residential units. Commissioners, the issues regarding commercial, again, we're talking about 80 plus acres that are designated commercial under the comprehensive plan now. We're pulling that back significantly on both sites. And there was a lot of testimony that this is a very good location. Valley-wide chose it for that reason. It's a location for commercial that serves this rural residential type of development that exists out there. So it's needed. And then the issues with wastewater and things will be addressed. They have to be addressed under the conditions before they can proceed.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Mr. Lakey on this. They Valley-wide purchased 10 acres to service that prototype that was included there. So potentially 22 acres left. Does that mean that 2 more? What's the average lot size required for commercial development? Do you have information on that? Like if somebody wanted to know, what does that commercial development portion look like? Given the land use matrix that has been provided and what's allowable in there, do you have any idea what that could look like?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, the lot size would completely depend on the proposed use. I will comment as I review the land use matrix, the tables, not a lot of difference between C1 and C2. There are a few nuances as far as whether one's an allowed or one requires a conditional use permit, but they're very similar in most ways. But C2 is a very appropriate designation on this major transportation corridor. And Commissioner, I can't really speculate on lot size. It depends on particular use, but the impact from that commercial development has to be addressed before they can proceed.
And I guess just for the record, out where Legacy decided to develop what you allow me to, so that's next to, adjacent to, also out there is SNWC's, which is still ag-related on site. So I'm just trying to get a feel, because it's a question that everyone has been raised in this from competition. How do we know how to plan when we don't know what's coming? So I know that we don't have the crystal ball, but there are people that hold the ground for that. And I think that would help mitigate some of the fear if people understood what it was. At least in my mind, that's a reasonable question.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, as I said, the land use matrix provides that list of things. So that's a place that folks can go and look and see. We're talking about, we're not talking about heavy commercial or light industrial or even industrial. I use Legacy Feed Fuel as an example because it was located on a commercial zone property, similar type development, but I'm also very familiar with the uses and zonings out in that area. And those seed companies actually are grandfathered. They predated zoning, and they would certainly be more industrial than they would be commercial, knowing the types of operations and sizes of facilities. So that's not something that could be located on this property.
Thank you for the clarification.
Just clarification too, reducing down from 80 acres now, zone commercial, is that C1, C2, do you know what that is?
There's only about, I want to say, 37 total.
37 total, right? That's what I was thinking. Okay, yeah. Okay, okay.
The C1 is a smaller portion of 2 to 3 acres.
But right now, the 80 is just...
80 is designated commercial.
Just straight commercial, no C1 or C2.
Right.
Okay, okay. All right.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Lacy?
Seems like I had one, but I'm not finding it in my notes here.
I don't remember what that was.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, I think we're looking at my potential response regarding the proposed conditions from the opposition.
Yes.
So I've had a chance to review those. And the challenge is, these are kind of things they're talking about. They want the infrastructure from the city, even though we're outside the city. They've got our sidewalk. Again, you're driving up costs and you're requiring lower density to do that. None of the other rural residential development has that kind of requirement that exists out there.
So, Madam Chair, Mr. Lakey, does Moonstruck West or Moonstruck Subdivision, do those have what they're asking for?
No.
Okay.
They're nice paved roads. We plan on doing paved public streets. They have drainage swales along the sides. That's the kind of project that we want to do. Quality homes and still have that rural feel. They're not city projects. We don't need additional park space. That's one. I'll just kind of go through the conditions if I might, Commissioner. We don't need a local park in this project. These are larger lots. I live on a similar lot. My kids play on the lot. It's a big parcel. It has 1 to 2 acres in size. There's a city park that is located to the west along 10th.
Yeah.
And then we also have Lake Lowell that has its own county park. It used to be when I was a commissioner.
Still is.
Still is. Okay, good. So there are park facilities nearby, and then there's not a park that's needed within this. We will mitigate dust control. There's no indication that the aquifer will be negatively impacted. We don't need any additional conditions in that regard. Doesn't make sense to restrict a local improvement district. I frankly have never seen a local improvement district in the county. It's kind of a product of cities. There's a process to establish that, and usually that's voluntary. It's not a mandate. So I don't think that is necessary.
Mr. Lacey, can you address point 4? There are no street lights. I know we talked about sidewalks and sidewalks, that there's no street lights in the Moonstruck or Moonstruck West subdivision.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, I'm not absolutely positive. I don't think so. Our preference would be to preserve that dark skies out there. That's what most rural residential developments have.
And in line with that too, if they want more light, they can. I've seen a lot of them in those big things. They'll put lighting out in front of their house to light their own property, commensurate with their driveway or something like that. And it kind of substitutes for street lights.
Continuing down their list, they have a list of what they feel are necessary traffic improvements as far as turn lanes and acceleration and deceleration lanes. Again, that's the product and the scope and the wheelhouse of the Highway District and ITD. They evaluate traffic and they impose conditions and comply.
Madam Chair, so Mr. Lakey, one of the things I would want you to potentially discuss with the applicants that you represent is a voluntary, a goodwill to dedicate turn lanes on that, where we've had testimony from the storage shed that there is traffic. We've had testimony from applicants that there is traffic. So that would be something, given the nature of the project, that it'll be quality development, that just because we can find support in the comprehensive plan for safety and preserving life and things like that, that would be a consideration. That I understand there would be a traffic report that would be generated, but that could help mitigate, offset some of the concerns for that we know exist. As a part of the deal, I don't know what that looks like then.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, I believe our site plan talks about turn lanes as far as our entrances go. And we will absolutely act in good faith as we discuss this with the Highway District, meet their standards and requirements. If they deem that the access point needs turn lanes, we'll absolutely. So all I can say is we'll definitely act and certainly act in good faith as we deal with the Highway District requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I didn't know I interrupted a couple of times with questioning as we go. So do you want to finish out any of that?
And I'm trying to find Are we looking,
We're looking at Exhibit 68, page 2.
are these
Clear
the,
towards the back.
yeah, are these the development agreement conditions?
This is a condition.
Suggested, okay, I got you, thank you.
So commissioners, I'll just march through the last couple. They want a minimum residential floor plan size of 2,400 square feet. Commissioners, you typically don't go into the CC&Rs, but you listen to what we have to say. And again, our intention is to have larger, high-end, quality homes on its properties. We'll have CC&Rs and make sure that's the case. I don't think you want to get into that realm. But our homes will be comparable to those that are out there. Those that are out there that we showed you are in that size range or larger. They want a condition that the majority of the homeowners in this site approve any commercial development. That doesn't really make sense. You want your commercial approved at the same time as your residential is approved. Therefore, folks come, they know it's there, and everybody's okay with that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Lakey, have you looked at, because the argument is the services that are being proposed, whether it's a gas station, that there's an overabundance in a small radius? What's your answer for that?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, that is really a private sector market driven question. As has been discussed by Commissioner Oliver, Commissioner White, Commissioner Dale, Commissioner Van Beek, we've been blessed with a lot of growth in Union County. It's certainly rather than that, the opposite we had back in the 80s and then during the downturn. There's been a lot of testimony that there is demand for this type of commercial property. Giving you examples, Valleywide wouldn't purchase this property if they didn't think it was an optimal site for their kind of facility. So it depends on the location. This property has good access compared to some of those that were described. Sure, folks may want to go into Home Depot and those kind of things still for larger purchases, but this will help retain some of those trips here locally instead of adding traffic on Highway. And I think it's simply, we have growth. With that comes demand for commercial services. And this type of commercial property tends to serve the rural residential character that's around it. So it makes sense. There's been a lot of testimony that supports it.
And I'll just maybe try to answer that one question. I'm only aware of the one gas station that you showed on one of your slides. It's an older Shell station that's on Farmway.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Dale, that's correct. I've been to that gas station a handful of times, and it's an older station, not built to the kind of standards that we'll build to today. And it's just a simple convenience store. So that's the only one that is in the immediate vicinity. You have to travel in closer to at least Midway before you run into Jackson.
Caldwell or something like that.
That's here.
Yes.
I have another question for you, Mr. Lakey, and it has to do with the staff report. It's page 3, and this is the original staff report from 2018. But part of our comprehensive plan also requires that we make an effort to preserve and protect ag ground. So the way that this is stated says that it contains, quote, farmland of statewide importance if irrigated, and it is irrigated. It's actively in production. So what's your answer for that?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Van Beek, as both you and Commissioner White described, it's a balance. You want to preserve the viable farm ground, particularly that's out in the ag area that doesn't have things around it that isn't close to the impact area. That's the balance that's provided in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan says residential development should occur in or near impact areas and be in areas where there's a pattern of residential development. We have both of those things here. So this property isn't the type that in that balance is supposed to be preserved, perhaps further north or further out on Highway 55. And then additionally, 80 plus acres of this are planned for commercial development, not for agriculture. So that's the plan on there currently. We're pulling that back. So yes, that's the broad goal. In this particular location, it makes sense to do what we're doing based on the character of the area.
Anything else from Mr. Lakey?
I don't think so. I think my questions or my comments will be reserved for the wrap up we did.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioners.
thank you.
That question from Mr. Blaisdell through chat.
There's been a request from Mr. Morrow, or the.
I think it came from Mr. Blaisdell.
Oh, Mr. Blaisdell.
Asking if.
On behalf of Mr. Morrow.
I know that it's on behalf, but he wants to know if Mr. Morrow can rebut.
He wants to rebut, and I think this is a public hearing. It's not a legal thing, but, I mean, it is, but you know what I mean. So, if Mr. Morrow, then Mr. Lakey again gets to rebut.
Correct.
Yes.
That's the structure that the county commissioners utilize for your hearing procedure. Is applicant to give it the initial time, opponents response, and the applicant has the rebuttal period. If Mr. Morrow is permitted some additional time, Mr. Lakey would require additional time.
So, now I want to, in the findings, why this is back in front of us, was that anybody about anything. So if I say, no, this is a public hearing and we've already finished all those that are for and those that are opposed, and then we have the rebuttal. So if I say, I'm good with the testimony that I have, Ms. Commissioner Dale, but are we cutting off, again, are we limiting their right to say anything and all that they need to for that? I do not want to make the same mistake again.
Madam Chair, maybe it would be beneficial if we asked Mr. Morrow how much time he needed and what area.
There, okay.
And Madam Chair, the only thing that I would point out is that we have done that on occasion in the past, but then in a quasi-judicial setting like this, it is required that the applicant have an opportunity. He gets the last word.
Absolutely. That's what, and
yeah.
But I do like that. Mr. Morrow, are you still on?
I am here.
How much time do you want?
It'll be very, very short.
Okay, very good.
I've not,
and then Mr. Lakey will follow up.
That's fine. I've not talked to Mr. Blaisdell, so I'm not sure what he wants me to rebut. However, it was pretty clear to me when Mr. Lakey testified in his rebuttal, advising you as the Board of County Commissioners that you don't need to address the request for reconsideration. That's contrary to the written decision of Judge McKee. So
now say that again, please, sir.
The comment that Mr. Lakey said to you about the request for reconsideration is directly contrary or against what Judge McKee has directed you to do. In other words, he gave you bad advice. That's my comment. You can read the decision for yourself. You'll see that part where he directs what you need to do with this hearing.
I just will say to that is that Mr. Lakey is representing the applicant, and he's not our legal advice. So, right. But I understand the point that you made. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Good.
Well, I'll reserve till after Todd.
Okay, Todd. You're very quick. He was very quick, so we got to follow suit. You're very quick.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, Todd Lakey, 12905 in Court, Idaho. I'll be very quick. That's my legal opinion. I think you're backing up past the reconsideration. But at the end of the day, you got it right on the head, Madam Chairman. I'm not your attorney. Mr. Morrow is not your attorney. Mr. Wesley is your attorney. Whatever you do, pursuant to his advice.
Right.
Thank you. Okay.
And Madam Chair, I wanted to hear Mr. Lakey say that, because my understanding is that we will follow the advice of our attorney, and if there is a reconsideration request following this hearing, then that would go to our attorney to say, how does this fit in with the order from the judge? And if we need to reconsider, we'll take that up at at the appropriate time.
Madam Chair? Yes. We've been going for almost 3 hours, and I'm going to propose a 3-minute break.
Can we close public?
Yeah, Madam Chair, before we break, I think you have completed all of the responsibilities of the chair to allow anyone to speak who wishes to, and I'm going to make a motion we close the public comment portion of this hearing.
I'll second with discussion. And here's my rebuttal to that, or I want to make sure that as a board, this land use decision is a big one. It's been on the books for 2 years. And unfortunately, the timing of this fell at the end of the week because this board takes these decisions seriously. And I have not done the diligence that I need in going through here. I have information from the last hearing, but I'm just making a statement that if I need, after going through here, to ask a question, I would hesitate to close public testimony.
Well, Madam Chair, and I'll answer that for you according to the years of experience I've had in public hearings. A commissioner or a city councilman is allowed to ask for clarification of a point if you choose to do that. The person responding to that question is only allowed to provide an answer to what you're asking for. They're not allowed to present new information. And Zach, I'm going to look to you to see if that fits in with what you have understood on that. But a commissioner can always ask one of the people who testified to clarify a point of their testimony, but that's it.
Commissioners, Madam Chair, the county's hearing ordinance has a procedure for reopening the record if there's additional questions or information requested from the board. So I think it's a procedural matter about when you close testimony, and then if you're going to open it up again, it's up to majority of the board how you're going to proceed. So if you want to close public testimony for the purposes of today, have some deliberation, and then there's some need for additional information, you can also have a motion to reopen the record and ask for that additional information.
And thank you for that. And that was not because we didn't value the importance of this decision. It is simply at the end of Board of Equalization and budget hearings, and it's been a lot. So with that, then I'll hold the second.
Yeah.
Okay. And I appreciate that, Commissioner Van Beek. This is probably 3 inch thick, this book, and there's over 100 exhibits, and I've got pages of notes from today. So I appreciate that. Thank you for recognizing the importance of needing some extra time to be thorough. So it's moved and seconded to close public hearing. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
And Madam Chair, if I could, I just might say, given that what I've just heard from Commissioner Van Beek and from you yourself, and I might look to our attorney for some guidance on this, but it may be appropriate to continue this meeting, this hearing, so that there is appropriate time to thoroughly digest what's in here and what we've heard today, to come back at another time to make the actual decision on here. I'm just saying that might be the most appropriate action.
In support of that, Madam Chair, we were receiving exhibits minutes before, and I requested them even at the beginning of this hearing because I did not.
And then I would look to Zach to say, that being said, if we're going to continue this to consider the exhibits and the testimony and information that's provided as of right now, does that require us to continue to accept information on this issue?
Not if you close the public testimony.
Okay.
So if the board's going to do this, I think what will be appropriate is to set a date certain as next week or the week after, whatever we've got available, to schedule that deliberation, to give the board the opportunity to review those documents, but then still to be within a reasonable time after closing the public testimony.
So we will continue?
Continue to a specific date, certain for deliberation.
And as you know, next week you've got budget hearings.
Correct.
Yes.
Stacked right on top of each other, and then you're out next Friday through the following week. Are you saying it needs to be done next week?
Well, I would hope that it would.
How about the first week of August?
That's about 2.5 weeks away.
Okay, I'll start looking for some time that first. How long do you think? An hour, 2 hours?
Deliberation typically will be within an hour.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Is there an hour next week, Monica? Towards the end of the week or?
Tom's out on Friday.
Okay.
That leaves us with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, if you have some 4 o'clock available,
How about Thursday the 23rd? We don't have anything past the EO meeting at 1:30. The afternoon is open.
So we can start this at 3:30 or 4 next Thursday. Not sure how you feel about it.
How about 3 o'clock? Because those EO meetings don't last more than an hour. And that's going to be over at 2:30.
We just had one, so we may go back to every other.
Yeah, so we could do it I think we can easily do it at 3.
Okay. 3 o'clock, that's Thursday?
Thursday, July 23rd.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we continue this hearing to consider further deliberation on July the 23rd at 3 p.m.
Second. Moved and seconded to continue to Thursday, July 23rd at 3 p.m. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, all of you that joined and took the time to speak out about this. That will conclude this meeting. Thank you again very much.
There is a question on WebEx asking, I don't know if folks thought they could only attend via WebEx, but
can all residents be there at the next meeting? That depends on, I think our room is set up for social distancing. And if we are still doing social distancing in a week from today, no, we've only got room for 17 people in this meeting room.
Madam Chair, we could offsite that over to the other room.
Except that that's where the EO meeting is, and so.
We have space for an extra, I mean, there's still some chairs.
There's still some chairs open, but there's only room for probably 1, 2, 3, 4.
17.
17 at the max. Yep. So, are there other questions?
I think that was the end of this question.
Okay, thanks. Oh, good, there we go. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. So were you able to see the chat questions on your?
I'll read them.